Maybe I need to reboot.
It wasn't for me the other night. I think
All
it was
right,
data.
let me just reboot.
Can't get in either right now.
Well, we had the guy here. He's
And apparently, if you're in a meeting and you say anything about IT, he'll come too.
You should still use the SAU link. You don't you have the SAU done?
I don't know.
Good.
Let me try that.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 13th Budget Committee meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll start tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, before we jump into tonight's agenda, we do need to take a quick vote for remote participation this evening, so I'll entertain a motion.
so second.
A motion by Mr. Leary, second by Ms. Douglas. We'll have to do roll call votes tonight with remote participation, so I'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Douglas?
Yes.
I am a yes. Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Barca?
Yes.
And Mr. Bork?
Yes.
All right, so that carries 8-0-0. And Ms. Stevens, are you able to hear us this evening?
Yep.
All right, we'll let you state your reason for being remote this evening and if anyone's in the room with you.
There is no one in the room with me, and I am remote because I am positive for COVID at the moment.
Oh, man.
We wish you the best and hope you get to feeling better soon.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to agenda, I'll open it up for public input this evening. Do we have anyone here for public input?
Shame.
Close public input.
Jeez, not like last week.
And review and additions to tonight's agenda. Anything anyone want to add?
No, I just say thank you for putting the updates near the school and town.
Yeah, I did flip those for this. I went ahead and flipped those when I updated that for today. Yep. All right, correspondence. I did send out in the updated agenda I sent out earlier today. I left off several correspondence because after I sent the updated agenda, I wound up sending several things to the budget committee. So I got ahead of myself. I'll go ahead and read those correspondence since our last meeting. On October 8th, Mr. Sullivan shared the task list from our October 6th meeting. On October 9th, Mr. Sullivan also shared the draft minutes from October 6th. On October 11th, Mr. Sun shared questions from Mr. Bork and answers from Ms. White regarding police payroll actual versus budgeted. Also on October 11th, Mr. Sun shared information regarding the old fire station utilities from Ms. White in response to Mr. Bork's questions. On October 13th, Mr. Sun shared an updated agenda for tonight's meeting that included correspondence. On October 13th, Ms. Stevens requested corrections to the October 6th minutes. Also today, on October 13th, Mr. Sun shared current school enrollment and projections with the Budget Committee. On October 13th, Mr. Sun shared responses on the use of fire impact fees on the fire station bond payments. And then finally today, on October 13th, Mr. Sun shared the response on the question around fire department weekend staffing that Ms. Hirschberger had asked. So that is our correspondence since last week. I will move to review and acceptance of minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review our minutes from last week?
Make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
We have a motion from Mr. Bork. Do I have a second?
I had
a
just
second
had a
from Mr.
couple
Barca.
small changes. I just was gonna check to see if they were made. I'm assuming that they were made by me.
Did.
Okay,
I did
thank you.
talk to him.
I just didn't,
Yeah, Mr. Sullivan isn't able to be here this evening, but I
Okay.
did talk to him and he was gonna make those changes,
Okay.
yes. Yep.
so he's not sending over is he sending over a final or just the draft that he sends over?
I call it a
And then-
draft because we have the opportunity to go in and
Yeah.
propose changes and edits to that before we actually vote on it. So that's why I personally call it a draft, but what he's sending over are the
And then-
minutes that he's taken, and then we have the
Yeah.
opportunity to.
And then once we
Make those
approve it,
changes.
does he send them over again?
Is
They
not,
get
no.
posted
They're
to the-
posted on-
Not,
yeah,
okay.
they're posted on the town website.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
All right, perfect. I thought I had seen them come over before.
I will
twice, so-
second Mr. Bork's.
I think
Thank you.
Mr. Barca had
Oh,
second, yep.
perfect.
Any discussion on the minutes? We're good?
No.
Okay, so we'll roll call a vote. Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Douglas?
Yes.
I am a yes. Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Barca?
Yes.
Mr. Bork?
Yes.
And Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
All right, that passes 9-0-0. All right, moving into the fun part of our evening. We're gonna go into town business, and we've moved general updates down, so we're gonna jump right into the budget review per schedule. I did speak with Ms. White before we got started this evening. We are gonna adjust things on our schedule to accommodate people who are here with us this evening. So we're gonna start with library. We're gonna let them go first, and then we'll go to police, who are gonna cover code enforcement, police administration, police support services, and animal control, I believe. And then, do we have anyone else that's presenting this evening? Which one, code enforcement, okay, perfect, great. So we'll do library, code enforcement, and then we'll go police administration and police support services, perfect? All right, and from there it'll be Ms. White and Ms. Kleiner. So we'll turn it over to the library. Thank you, ladies, for joining us this evening.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Donna Ferguson, Chair of the Library Trustees.
And I am Ruth Ellen Whitney, the Board of Trustee Library Treasurer.
Great.
I think we'd like to start with Library at a Glance. That's on tab 4, if you have all those lovely tabs. And we apologize, Vicki Varick, the Director of Libraries, can't be here tonight. She's out of town. I'm sure you all appreciate the Cutler Memorial Library, but it was requested last year that we provide some statistics that are here, that are listed on tab 4, Library at a Glance, just to provide some context for the library budget. First, we use a nationally recognized software tool called Library Use Value to calculate the library's return on investment to the town. By comparing the taxpayer's investment in the town budget against the cost savings to the patrons who use the library, we receive a 73% return on investment. And we think this high rate of return is a great indicator of how efficiently the library is run and that the townsfolk are getting a good bang for their buck. Also, an average of 106 users are served every day, with 225 new users this year alone. And surely this growth is a sign that the town library is appreciated. In addition to being a repository of information, we have a professional and friendly staff who can provide guidance and in-depth research on an abundance of topics to elevate and maintain an informed citizenry. And with inflation and rising utility costs this winter, the library may be visited even more often as a place to stay warm and where residents won't have to spend any money. We're open 5 days a week, including evenings and Saturday mornings, and we manage with just under 4 full-time equivalents for staffing. And I'm sure you're all aware of our library service offerings, but just to highlight a few, in addition to our book holdings in print, CDs, magazines, newspapers, DVDs, and movies, and 81% of our circulation does still come from these physical items, the library also has computers and educational software, as well as Hoopla, which is a downloadable service which provides audiobooks, ebooks, magazines, music, and movies in quantities much larger than we could either afford or purchase or house in our small building that we have. We also have Liberty, Overdrive, an interlibrary loan program, Heritage Quest, LinkedIn Learning, and Mango online language learning. And the list goes on, as you can see if you scroll down on that tab. But last and not least, I do want to emphasize we also have community programming for all ages, from newborns through adults. We have story times and story walks for our youngest patrons. We have tween and teen programs, including reading challenges, game fests, and crafts, to adult programs, including afternoon and evening book groups, knitting groups, and special interest education programs such as Understanding Ukraine. Our programs are well supported by the community as we solicit numerous local businesses for contributions and search for local grant opportunities, such as the $3,300 grant that was successfully awarded to us last year from the United Way of Greater Nashua. So these all help to supplement our operating budget. And if there are no questions, I'd turn it over to the board chairman, Donna, and she'll move back to tab 3 in the proposed budget summary.
Hi. So I'd like to go over some of the highlights of the budget to start there. with increases of $100 or more for the software and the licenses, that was $436, which included Slack, which is a communication tool for the staff, and other minor rate increases. Electricity, increase of $2,068, which that rate is increases based on the previous 12 months, with a 112% increase in supply and 3% decrease in delivery. Heating oil, $1,065. The current contract rate is $3.75 per gallon. Septic tank cleaning, $325, which the tank is cleaned in odd number years. Books and media, $2,809, which is an annual increase in the digital services. The addition of Hoopla, which was previously funded through ARPA grant last year, and it ended last year. The children's program supplies, $323, which is supplies for 10-story walks and the December holiday event. Decreases of $100 or more is the equipment maintenance contract, which is $361. It's the removal of the 2022 5-year load test and periodicals, which is a negative $165, which is fewer subscription titles. Which is more on the payroll side, the increase of $100 or more. So $15,982, which includes increased merits and additional hours for 2 positions, but only 1 is intended to be used. Additional hours for 2 positions, yeah, that's why I said that. So the assistant librarian, position 2, we would like to increase that from 8 to 24 hours per week. The job description is attached. The focus of this increase is to provide support to the children's services and director, but the position would also assist the adult and teen services and circulation. There's a separate tab for that, if I don't know if you saw that, but it's there's different scenarios that we've created for that.
And that's the tab that says assistant
Librarian scenario, correct. So there's position to where it's their current 8 weeks, 8 hours per week for 13 weeks, and then 24 hours per week at 39 weeks, which would be an additional $27,284, or 16 hours, which, as you can see, 8 hours per week for 13 weeks, 16 hours at 39 weeks, $12,508.08. 12 weeks would be 8 hours per week for 13 weeks, 12 hours a week for 39 weeks, $9,898.20, or no additional, just 8 hours per week, which would be $8,512.92, and then they fill in for an additional, for when staff is out, or vacations, that kind of thing, for $238.68. So both the children's, this solves the immediate need and is a first step in the succession planning for the director's retirement. We don't know when that is, but it's the first step. Both the children's librarian and the director consistently work beyond their weekly hours. Being salaried, the director can admit to that. The children's librarian will not admit working at home, but she does do that. For the library to be prepared to hire a new director, some of Vicky's duties have been added over the years, have been to be shared with other staffing, including cataloging, patron billing, newsletter, social media, and website management. And the children's librarian, to work within her hours, she needs someone to cover the children's room, desk duties during programs, and professional development, collection development. This person will also facilitate the programs in her absence and allow the children's librarian to visit the schools and participate in community outreach programs, opportunities. So that's the first scenario.
Which is, I think, the scenario we need and we're hoping for.
Correct.
Is the full 24 hours, which really just brings the full-time equivalents from under 4 to just over 4.
Correct.
But we do realize there's a lot of budgetary pressures with the health insurance and the heat and oil and.
So the other scenario would be to increase the page positions from 5.5 to 7 hours per week. And there were, I believe, 2 of them. Isn't that correct?
Yep.
Yep. So, and I think there's a tab for that where you can see what those additional costs would be. There would be 7 weeks, and every other Saturday, 9 hours per week, 8 hours, 9 weeks for 8 hours per week, and the fill-ins would be 37 hours. Or no additional hours. So and on the assistant library, this can be a step thing, not all at once. It could be, you could start out slow, and then, I think that's what she said, add more hours to it. So, some of the other increases were the health insurance buyout, which was $2,235. The health insurance, $4,183, which is an increase of 11.7%, and the dental insurance, which is actually there's no change due to a calculation error, which is a -1. And the custodian wages, which is negative because we had an employee resign.
Won't you need a custodian next year?
Yeah, no, that.
She meant a negative change.
That was a negative
compared
change to the
budget.
budget.
It was lower
So
than
we are
budget.
actually, I know Vicki had put I can't think of the word, posted for that position. I don't know if she's, has interviewed anyone yet, but I know, we definitely need that.
And as you know, what happens, everyone chips in, but then you're paying assistant libraries to do janitorial work, and that's not efficient either,
Right.
by any means.
I'm just not clear on, okay, you want additional hours for 2 positions, but only one is intended to be used. I don't
No,
understand
no,
that.
so we've laid out 2 scenarios. Either it would be the assistant librarian, or it would be the increased hours for an assistant librarian or a page,
Okay,
right? Not both. Both of them are in the budget, but it would only be one. We just wanted to show you what those figures would be.
So, given the constraints of the budget and where we are with the tax cap, have you guys considered the possibility of using a warrant article to expand your positions? Because we are, well, in addition to it to being a significant increase in your budget, there's literally no money, for it. So have you considered a different approach to, if you support this position and you think the community will support it, is there a willingness to consider another route?
Yes, we could do a warrant article, if that's the route that we would have to go to get this position, yes. Because we really feel that the library needs that. It needs the extra. Our staff is, they're maxed out. I
And we
mean, the
prefer that-
programs are growing at the library, right? We offer so much. And so we need that staff, that extra staff, those hours to help.
So, I mean, my personal position has long been expansion of services ought to be a warrant article anyway, but the reality is, I don't see how, and people can make their decision as to what other things where they'd like to take the funds, but I think every department's gonna have to chip into this where we are right now, and I think that personally, your best bet would probably be to go the warrant article in order to expand these services, in my personal opinion.
I don't see this as a new position, though.
It's expanding services, so it could fall under the situation of an expansion of services. So it's a reasonable reason to put forth a warrant article.
Because the position is there, we're just expanding those hours.
Right, so it's an expansion of services. So that would fall under, it would check my box as to why there should be a warrant article. Everybody has their own parameters by which they determine. For me, it's a warrant article.
I don't agree with that. I think it's a position that we already
So in
have.
the past, we had a
don't think it needs a
situation
warrant
where
article.
we had a math tutor who existed, but we wanted to make it more of a full-time position, and that became a warrant article because it added hours. It changed the status. Like, would this person go from part-time to full-time?
No, because it would only be
32 hours a week.
But did not the library determine that 32 hours is full-time?
It's only 24 hours, I thought.
24 hours, for a total of 24 hours, not 30, yeah.
But again, considering where we are in the budget, we can't approve much anyway. So if, rather than cut it and say, I'm sorry, come back next year, there is another avenue available. If you truly believe in it and want to make that campaign to the taxpayers.
Mr. Leary,
Right, it's an avenue, and then what happens if it were voted down by the voters, though, then that would take it completely off the table for the entire year.
Yes, but that would also indicate that the voters are satisfied with the current level of service and do not wish to see an expansion. And that's why we asked the
I'm
voters.
just showing I'm just pointing out the
Yeah, that's the risk.
different sides of which way it could go.
Yeah. So what was the Board of Selectmen's, when they reviewed it? What was their position?
Did that come up in discussion?
I think we cut the $10,847 line, is that right? And then Vicky said we couldn't do that because we don't have control over the library,
That was my understanding.
and added it
Yeah.
back in.
Does it go against the tax cap, the library?
Yes,
It does go against,
Yeah.
you have no control over it, but it goes against the tax cap.
correct.
I would suggest.
That's a good gig.
Illegal, I mean, I would ask the lawyers if
And
that's an
I
accurate
think the reason we did
interpretation.
that was because, like here, it says allows for a starting range of 1573 to 1673, so I think we viewed that as a new position. And my position has always been, I won't approve a budget that doesn't have new positions going to the warrant articles.
But it's not a new position, right?
It's not a new
Well, it says
position.
a starting range.
So it's not a new position.
Where do you see starting range?
Are you on the
It's
proposed
on the
budget?
proposed
Yeah.
budget, right.
Okay, go down to line 27. It says see assistant scenario page,
Oh, I see it, yep.
right below that.
So, Mr. Leary, question then, if the Board of Selectmen don't have control over the library spend, then what power do we have?
Budget committee has.
Budget committee does
has
control,
power.
yeah.
Okay.
And the trustees do.
Yep.
Right.
So one follow-up question, so if I'm reading this correctly, the library is open 31 hours a week, is that correct?
Isn't it 32 hours a week? Isn't that what that position
So you
is?
got 10 on 2 days a week,
10 to 8, right?
10 to, and isn't it Thursday,
And then you
10 to
have,
8? Isn't it 10 to 8?
hold on one second.
That was 10 to 8, Tuesday through Thursday.
Tuesday through Thursday, and then 9 to 12
You got two
on
10-hour days, an 8-hour day, and a 3-hour day,
31.
so 31.
31.
So 31 hours that the library is open, and with this proposed budget, I'm reading it that you need 4 full-time staff in order to provide library services.
Right, full-time equivalents, yes.
Other questions for the library?
The numbers don't make sense to me. So it's saying a total of $50,000 a year, but the salary, even at the high range, 1673, that comes to almost 3,000 hours a year, which would be hard to work, considering it's less
So
than
this
that.
is like two positions, right? So the first one is 32 hours a week, and then where where it has position number 2, is that where you're seeing the 50,128 at the top?
Yeah.
Right.
Two positions.
Those are
Both
two
positions.
positions,
Oh.
those are both positions. So
Let me
the
go back to
first
the detail, though.
position 1 is the 32-hour, and then the position 2 would be 24 hours, or 16 hours, or 12 hours. So we gave you several, or just 8 hours per week. So we gave you several different scenarios.
So there's two of them though? Because I'm looking, even at the budget summary on line 14.
So there's the, we currently have the assistant librarian at 32 hours a week, and then the position 2 would be, it's currently 8 hours, but we want to increase that to 24. And then we have 2 pages. Is maybe that what you're
Oh,
saying?
so they're all combined to that
Right,
line
then we have 2
123.
pages.
Oh, wait, no.
Right.
The
We have
line 14,
one
which
page.
expenses 123, covers 2 people.
I'm sorry, say that again?
So on the budget summary page, budget summary, line 14, expense number 123, wages assistant librarian. It says 50,128.
That would be for the 32-hour assistant librarian, which includes the wages, the fill-in, and the merit increase, and then the position 2 for 24 hours at 17,000. So that's the total of that. Right, and then if you look at the summary, I know it's a little confusing. Like on each one, it just shows you if it was 24 hours, the total would be 44,909 between the 2 of them. Or 12 hours would be 42,299.
Between the two of them, okay.
Correct.
I misread, I thought there was one assistant
It's-
librarian working 8 hours a week right now, when you wanted to bring in that person to 24 hours?
We just wanted to show different scenarios. It either could be 24 hours, it could be 16 hours, it could be 12. We could do it over time, so.
So can I just ask for clarification what the consensus is from the library, what you're looking for? Generally, you don't like come with like, you know, we'd like one.
We would like we would like to increase
It's like,
it
you know,
by
what do we put in the
24.
bag and pull something out of?
No, we would like the 24 hours,
Okay.
to increase that second position to 24 hours, to assist.
Why scenario number 2 then?
If you could say to us, well, what would it be if it was 16 hours? If you only increase it, well, what if it was only 12 hours? You could, we gave you different scenarios.
They've been through this process before, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Gotta have a backup.
But
to
as
your
you know,
backup.
also finding people, it would be, if the first librarian didn't want to, or assistant didn't want to increase hours and we had to find someone else, it would be hard to just find a position for 8 hours, versus 16 or 24. Most people don't. And you have to train them and stuff, and it's hard to train someone who's only there 8 hours a week, too. So we certainly would prefer the 24 and feel like there's plenty of work to support that. And we know the librarian and, well, the director and the assistant, the director and the children's library are definitely overworked. Those are the programs that are really
Well, adding these
thriving.
hours, it wouldn't necessarily change the total hours opened, it's just increasing the staffing during the
Correct.
existing hours.
Correct.
Okay.
And did I understand correctly, the fill-in is coverage for when somebody else is out?
Vacations, yes.
Okay, so then I guess my question becomes, if we have a director, a children's librarian, an adult services librarian, and an assistant librarian, that all work 32 hours a week, that means all 4 of them are there for pretty much the entire time that
No,
the
I don't believe
library's
all-
open, because the library's only open 31 hours, so then how can they fill in if they're already working the
Well-
hours of the library?
Well,
Are they working before or after the library's open, and that counts as their hours? Is that?
they may be there an hour before, but I'm pretty sure once the library closes, they're leaving. But I know they may have a day off during the week if they're only 32. I'm not sure.
I guess I'm just asking as far as if there's fill-in hours, but
Mm-hmm.
there's 4 employees that are all working 32 hours, which allows them to be there hypothetically a half hour before the library opens and a half hour after to get things closed up. How can somebody fill in if they're already working their regular job? Like, I don't
If they're
understand.
on vacations, they could be on vacations, right? There are vacations that they have to fill in for.
But how can, but I guess my point is, if all 4 have 32 hours, and the library is open 31 hours, where are they filling in? Because everybody is already working the total amount of
I
time.
could get that answer for you. I can get that answer for you.
Thank you.
I don't want to try to guess it, but I could get
That's
that
fine.
answer for
We
you.
are a little disadvantaged with the director who
Right.
does the operations.
Exactly, yeah. I don't want to
Yes.
say, this is what I think, because
That's
I'd rather
fine.
say, this is what I know.
And a question, so the director is a salaried position, is that correct?
Correct.
The other are hourly positions?
Correct.
Salaried at 32 hours, which is interesting to me, and I had never heard of that.
Right, yeah, I would agree with that. Usually
like-
when I think salaried, I think
Yeah.
you're not confined
You're
to.
full-time.
It's no different than the fire chief.
Personally, I have, anytime that I've stopped at the library to drop books on Monday, the director's car is there.
She is there
The
on
library.
Mondays.
Most Mondays, yeah.
Right,
When the library's not open, what you're saying?
right.
Right. And I know, different pages and things will be, covering the children's desk on Saturdays. Whether it's, I'm not sure exactly their titles, but the children's librarian isn't always there on Saturdays either. So there is some flexibility already with the, what days they're working. So I think that that's where some of the fill-ins, come in.
So maybe in addition to Mr. Taylor's question, are there days that they work when the library is not open? And does that count as a part of their hours per
I
week?
think it's just I believe it's just the director that's there on Monday by herself,
Okay.
probably doing all of her paperwork and whatever it is that she does. And I know on Thursday she's off, but she does do things from home.
Maybe if we just get a snapshot of the schedule of.
Sure, we could get
have the
that, yeah.
employees there, and we'd have a better idea and would answer
Sure.
Ms. Taylor's question.
And there are times too, when the children's programs are running where, especially in the summertime, we have pages in the children's library and outside, plus they still have to have someone inside the library, and it's 2 floors, so.
Correct.
There's more than 2 people working
Correct.
at a time,
Yep.
so.
So I'm curious, have you ever like reached out to the high school as far as for a sophomore project to get, especially during the summertime, hours filled?
Well, the thing of it is, with the library, you have to, you know, that you can't have them work the service desk because
I'm
they're.
thinking more of like when you have your outside activities and story time and craft time, things like that. I mean, there's tons of kids that are looking for volunteer hours, you know, as far as for the community. It might be an idea.
Okay. Something to think about for the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions for the library this evening? Okay, so we've got the one follow-up question, and I think to Mr. Bork's point, like if we can just get a schedule of, you know, days worked per week, I think that will.
Should we email that or bring it to the meeting?
If you want to email it to me, that's fine, and I can share it with the rest of the committee.
Okay, we can do that.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Did- Everything else is okay, though? I know that was a little,
Yeah, I mean,
First
tonight,
day. I'm
yeah,
sure
tonight,
something
you know,
to absorb it, right?
yeah, so next week we do our voting, so there will be more discussion and
Okay.
conversations that'll come up, I'm sure. But yes, thank you.
All right, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Great evening.
Thank you.
All right, next we're gonna jump back up and we'll do code enforcement, which is 4241.20.
All right, Jeff, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
Right.
So I guess we'll start right off with wages and whatnot.
Yep.
So that's just me. So that's in there. So that takes care of the first, 6 items anyways. We get to printing, 550, line 550. I've increased that to 450. It's based on just additional printing needs we know we're gonna need for next year. Dues, licenses, subscriptions, unchanged. That's the software program, MyGov, that we use for the permitting. Those dues haven't changed, as well as the dues and whatnot for the memberships for the building officials and et cetera. The vehicle repairs and maintenance, I've reduced that to the $500. It's based on having the new vehicle that's purchased towards the beginning of the year.
Nice decal, by the way.
They came out nice, didn't they? Books and periodicals, that's been increased. It's based on, we're in a new building code cycle. So the 2018 building code is now out and will be effective January 1st. So that is a large amount of books that I'm gonna need.
The physical books, or are they the electronic copies?
Combination. So different ones, I'll have both electronic and physical copies and hard copies. Some are only available electronic copy. Uniforms, reduce that to 300. And seminars and conventions, we've reduced that to just over 2,500. That's just based on, I'll be doing more of the online webinars and whatnot rather than the in-person.
Okay.
So those costs are reduced there.
Currently show an increase of 2361, of which most of that is kind of in those first few items related to salary and insurance.
Correct.
Questions for code enforcement?
Are these real insurance numbers, or are we still waiting for those?
Nope, those came
Yeah,
in
those
over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry if I missed that.
Seminars and conventions is what's that tied to in terms of you keeping your certification? Which one, how much of that is required to keep your certification?
Not, it's probably, I don't know, I guess it's somewhere half or less.
Okay.
It's roughly half. And the rest of that is just maintaining, with the building codes and whatnot. They're back to doing seminars, both combination of in-person and online.
Other questions?
I just had a question about the salary expense for 2021. Just, I'm wondering if that was like a, did we have a transition and was somebody not in that position for like a half a year or something like that?
That was the year our inspector passed away.
Oh, okay, okay, got it.
Any final questions for code enforcement? All right. Thank you, sir.
Can we go to Health Department?
Oh, you're gonna do health? Okay,
Well,
sorry.
Yeah.
I said I was gonna
I'm
do
here.
health.
Please
Okay.
do. Please do.
Absolutely.
I'll be here to answer questions if there's any.
So let's do Health Department 4411.10.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, I don't think we had any changes, so the health office stipend of the 15, we don't do the, water analysis, the dues and subscriptions, for the deputy health offices, and then seminar and conventions. So we left it, as is.
Questions for Health Department?
What does the health department do? I see it used to be collecting tests for E. coli, but now that's zeroed out. So I'm curious, what does the health department do?
So there's a number of functions. One is, of course, anytime you're dealing with COVID, there can be involvement. And of course, that's definitely waned now because we're over the hump for the most part with what we're doing, and who knows, everybody's got more information now. But we're also dealing with any triple E test results and whatnot that get reported. I get calls from neighboring towns. I get calls from Manchester and whatnot in regards to that, as far as their testing results and whatnot. Failed septic systems technically come under the health officer. Any cases of bed bugs will involve the health officer. There's yearly inspections for daycares. There's also inspections for, like at Spooky World, with the food setup, the food trucks and whatnot. We'll have to go down and inspect that, get that, make sure that's all set. So there's a variety of little things that add up. The water contamination, we're involved with that. So.
Thank you. Didn't realize.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, we will go to police. Start with police administration 4210.10. Good evening.
Good evening. I did make a couple of paper copies if somebody's looking for.
Oh, and that's bigger for you.
See, you guys are listening.
It is bigger, so that one's mine. I have a couple of them. I didn't want to waste too much paper.
Oh, I'll take a copy.
Brian, you want? Good. I think we're good. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
He's got his glasses tonight.
That's right.
I like to take my notes in the margins. This whole thing is.
That's why you don't leave your margins.
It's easy. Both sides. All good.
So for those that I have not met, my name is Mike French. I am the interim police administrator for the police department, and will be presenting our budget proposal for 2023.
Welcome.
The work that has been put into the budget proposal is a result of collective effort with a number of people within the police department. We believe that we have put forth a budget that will support the mission of the department and ensure as best we can public safety within the town of Litchfield. The budget covers 14 full-time sworn law enforcement officers, 3 part-time sworn law enforcement officers, 2 full-time dispatchers, and 1 full-time administrative assistant. So with that, I can dive right into the biggest portion of the budget, which is personnel.
Okay, perfect.
Under PD salary administration, that covers the chief and the captain's position, both of which are salaried employees. So the adjustment there is the COLA. PD officers covers the remaining 12 officers, and there's been adjustments there as a result of action from the town meeting last year. So there is an added sworn officer's position under the PD officers. That accounts for the largest increase. There was also an adjustment made related to part-time officers, and I'll get to that in a second, as a result of the town meeting adding an additional police officer. Also included in PD officers is this year 2 officers became eligible for master patrol status. That is outlined in the contract. And 1 officer became eligible for longevity status. All of that is outlined in the contract, and the COLA adjustments are outlined in the contract as well. Administrative assistant, we have 1 administrative assistant, and the adjustment there is the COLA. PD prosecutor. Our full-time employee that was the prosecutor resigned in September, returning to, I guess, private practice. We're sorry to lose him. He was a employee of the town and had benefits. We were fortunate enough to find an attorney who's familiar with the Merrimack District Court, where we go, who was willing to come to us on a contractual basis. So in this line, we took out or zeroed out the PD prosecutor as it relates to an employee, and transferred it to the line further down, which is the prosecutor contracted services. So that was the other adjustment made there. PD wages, special officers, these are the part-time officers. You will see a recommended reduction in this line, and that is the result, again, of the town meeting having a full-time SRO, and the previous part-time corporal that was in this line has left the agency, so we made those adjustments. PD wages, overtime officers. This is overtime for the full-time officers, excluding the captain and the chief, because both of those are salaried employees. And this line is used predominantly for shift coverage, which could be a backfill for sick time, vacations, holidays, those types of coverages. We've given a breakdown of the different types of coverages that could occur, because we don't know if a corporal is going to be covering the backfill, or a sergeant, or a patrol officer. We've made an adjustment based on our experience thus far, as well as looking at the earned time liabilities that we currently have. Each officer earns a certain amount of earned time, based on how many years they've been in service. And if they elect to take those, we need to do the backfill. We computed the amount of earned time that is available to them. And essentially, with shift adjustments, we believe we can cover it half of what is actually on the books. So we did not budget the full amount of the earned time.
What line is that again? Sorry.
140.
140, okay.
But there is an increase to that line. And you have COLA plus our, based on our past experiences. So moving on to the others that have significant changes. PD overtime training. We essentially are leaving that the same. We believe that we can accomplish all of the training necessary and cover it with the overtime within the current schedule and within this budget figure, and also be responsive to the LEAC Commission's recommendations for increased training. That will be coming, and you'll hear this year, you'll hear next year that they are increasing the training for, recommended training for law enforcement officers, and there'll be an increases in the training required to continue your certification.
And that goes into effect next year?
Next year is the first year that
Right.
it's gonna increase
Right.
incrementally.
Yeah, right. So, but the current budget that you're proposing covers that
Covers
increase.
what is coming for
Okay, so-
23.
So reality is, even though it's an increase, it's also, you're expected to have an increase in training. So
Yes,
it's
we
not
are.
really, if I looked at this budget and compared it to last year's budget, I can't really without that caveat. Okay, good, thanks.
Okay. PD uniform allowance. This is a contractual item, and is addressed for cleaning of the uniforms. And each officer gets an annual amount as defined in the contract. Community details. Community details are things like school events, football games, road races, those types of things that are generally offered by a government entity or a not-for-profit. It does not include road details associated with public service, tree cutting, Spooky World, anything like that. These are true community events. Based on our history, where we've fallen short the past couple of years in the amount of money necessary to cover that, so we're recommending an increase of $1,000 to that line. Recognizing, however, we will continue to cover some things using existing on-duty personnel whenever possible. Health insurance, dental insurance, long-term disability, PD life, I understand those went up, and I don't have the number on my sheet, but I'm guessing by the nods, you folks have the numbers on yours.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Just say a lot.
Yes, Yes, sir. PD prosecutor contracted services, again, we transferred from a full-time employee to a contractual employee, and this number reflects the first year of the contract. Software support, 342. There is a sizable increase there, and that is reflected in the maintenance costs, essentially in the IMC support product. That is, the IMC is the police database, and it's the records management, and it's the dispatch program. So the provider is IMC, or I think their name now is TriTech, but that's what they quoted us for an increase for the following year. The others, the WatchGuard Cruiser video system, same issue. That's a quote for continued maintenance.
So one question I have is, they were talking about that last night at the CIP. If they or the Board of Selectmen encourages the completed turnover of those to like upgrade all, no, that's not them?
No, that does not include it.
So that's my question is, how would that impact this number? Would
This is
that?
the maintenance, not,
The actual library itself is no impact.
Right, so adding the number of units won't put this number up.
We already have a license for like that.
Okay, that's, I just wanted, if we make a change here, how does it affect here? Thank you, okay, good.
Okay, and the other two items, other three items listed there, TransUnion and Leads Online are both investigative tools. They're extremely helpful. And the LexisNexis legal software, essentially is law books. Some hard copy, some on CD. Prosecutor uses that a lot for case research.
So if we no longer have a prosecutor and have that service contracted, do we still need the LexisNexis?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
You still
We need to
prosecute with
provide him the tool to do that.
I mean, I would assume he would have had his own, but yeah, it would be built into his rate. That's why you have a contracted services of a consultant. Okay, thank you.
is that a question we can ask? Like, does he have
He's
he
a
have that?
he's a municipal prosecutor, not a private attorney prosecutor, so. And I think the rate is reflective as, in that. I mean, that's a rate lesser than what you had before.
It's an overall reduction of almost $18,000
Right.
between the two positions.
So I think providing him the book is.
No, that's
is
fine. I
small.
just thought a lot of times when you hire a consultant, they bring, you pay for their
Sure.
stuff.
Or they
so-
already have it.
Or they already have it, so then it's built into their rate they charge you. So it's just a question of, are we carrying something that's already provided elsewhere? And the answer is no, we're not. This is needed.
Yes, perfect, thank you. Let's see, what else do we have here that's gone? A lot of the others, until we get down to general supplies, are level funded. General supplies, a very small increase of $270, and essentially that's based on our history, as well as the fact that we're gonna need to be buying some additional batteries for the night sights on the handguns. The other area that has a bit of an increase is PD equipment, maintenance and repair. It's a small increase related to the expected increased charge for certification of the radars, and potential communication system repair. It's a small increase. 660 PD vehicle repairs and maintenance. We proposed a slight reduction in that line, essentially based on the fact that we initially proposed 2 cruisers. We're now down to 1. Based on the discussion at the beginning of the meeting, I'm gonna think that we're gonna have to leave and live with that number that we proposed. We will do our best to stay somewhere in there, but if you look at our current monthly reports, we're dangerously close to going over in vehicle maintenance already. That line covers oil changes, tires, alignments, brakes, batteries, and it's for the frontline cars, the 2 admin cars, and the detail cars. PD uniforms and accessories, we're proposing a significant increase there. We're beginning to see price increases in in the cost of uniforms for law enforcement officers, as well as the fact that we need to outfit a new hire based on the actions of the town meeting, and that figure is there. Ammunition, supplies, and purchase, we're not recommending an increase there. Equipment purchase, we are recommending a sizable increase here, and the reasons for that is we need to purchase 3 new bullet-resistant vests for the officers. Bullet-resistant vests have a shelf life at best of 5 years, and next year we're gonna have at least 3 that are out of that 5-year window or coming close to it, and you don't wanna wait for the exact five-year deal, so, plus the new officer will need a vest. We have a replacement schedule for that. We're trying to stick to it as best as we can.
So that schedule is 3 a year?
It's based on when we purchase them. So in this year's budget, we need 4.
All right.
And next year's budget, we're gonna need 3. And I could dig through and see how many for the following year. But it's on a replacement schedule based on when we bought them.
No, I appreciate that. It's just like cruisers and whatnot. It's like 3, 5, 5, whatever level is. You know, I just was curious as to whether or not it was I do know we ramped up some of our staffing, so perhaps there's like a bubble when we have to get more. I was just curious.
And those 2 years would be half of the staff right there.
Yeah. But whether we're gonna get, whammied in like 3 years with, oh, by the way, we need 10. Awesome.
We'll try to avoid that scenario.
Much appreciated. Not that I don't want our people safe, but I'm like, that'd be nice to know what's coming.
Yep, understood. PD cruiser purchase, as indicated, we originally requested 2, but dealing with 1. And that is currently it's the Tahoe, which is the same vehicle that
So-
we've currently been purchasing, as
Question.
well as the outfit.
Have we considered other alternative vehicles? Because I remember when a purchase in an outfit cost half this. So, like, is there a reason we have to have the Tahoe? I mean, we have a lot of, I've seen our streets and short of like,
The auto industry has changed. I hear that at least one brand is not gonna make a police package anymore. I hear that one of the other ones still makes a police package, but it's only front-wheel drive, which is not
that's good in
that
other places
great.
of the state, country.
And then there is the other manufacturer that is still manufacturing a product that you had in the past that we can certainly look at. But I don't think, based on the numbers I've seen recently, that it's gonna be much less than the purchase price of a Tahoe at this particular time. And then if you go backwards again, not backwards, but if you go back to a different model, now you're gonna go back to different equipment again.
Well,
It doesn't interchange itself.
no, I appreciate that. I just, when I see that one vehicle costs,
That's with a full fit up though.
no,
That's
I
with all the
understand, but
equipment.
their full fit up
It's
used
like
to,
40-something for the vehicle.
right, but they used to be 80 grand for a car and a fit out. I remember that. Like,
That's when they were cycling cars and they had the gears going out of one car going to the other.
Right, which we don't do.
We're in a transition year again, so Tahoe changed the body style, so the cages, I think I explained this last
no,
time.
I'm just, but I didn't also, that's what? That's like 2 years of college. Like, that's like,
What
that's,
college are you going?
Gary, you haven't priced vehicles lately.
I'm just, I've seen what my WPI costs
We
now.
made the change a couple of years ago to the Tahoes from the Explorers. A big driving force behind that was, number one, you get more longevity out of them, and the hope is to go 1 per year versus a 2, 1, 2, and then start the cycle again.
Okay.
And another driving force, if you were here when they did the walkthrough a couple of years ago, would you stand up for a sec? That's a large man right there, and he's not even one of the bigger ones on the force. You put a vest on him, you put him in the front seat of an Explorer where he's got the computer, he's got all his gear and everything in there that they have to do every day, and you literally have to get out of that car to change your mind. It's that tight. And they spend about 8 hours a day in these vehicles, and I can't see having them cramped in the vehicles like that. It was a small increase at the time, and we felt it was well worth it.
No, I appreciate that. It's just I know that's going to be one of those things that, well, you're $240,000 over the tax cap. Is there anywhere we can save? Oh, look at how much that cruiser costs.
We kicked one.
Like,
We've already kicked one out.
So the one that was kicked, is the thought a warrant or?
No, it's just, we pulled it, yeah. And he wasn't privy to the discussions that were held before, so I had to break that to him during the selectmen's budget meetings.
So didn't we just,
Did it gently.
I know you say you pulled one, but didn't you just purchase one with year-end funds?
Not this year.
We do with the grant, yes.
Oh, they had a grant for something, yeah, was that an admin?
No.
Or was that
No,
another
it was a
cruiser?
line, it was a line car.
Yeah,
It was a
Right,
line
so
car.
you just purchased a new one.
but I don't think we got one last year. Did we buy
I'm-
one as a last year? Oh, we did, and then we got
It
the
was
second
one instead of two, yes.
We encumbered money from last year's budget, and then I found the grant money.
Yeah, but we didn't, we only ended up with one cruiser, yeah.
Yeah, if you look at 2021 and 2022, it doesn't look like they bought one.
No, but they just bought one.
And, yeah, but they weren't in the budget, they bought one with year.
Yeah.
I know, so that's gonna be two. You keep saying you pulled one because you bought one.
bought
Because
one
it
last
wasn't in
year.
the budget for
It was
last
last
year, we
year.
got it
It
in
wasn't this
January.
year.
It came in January.
It was last year's encumbered
It
money.
was on order last year, but came
Right.
in January.
So you got one for 2022, and you're looking for one for 2023, and
Yes.
there'll be one every year from
Yes.
here on out.
That's the plan.
so doing the quick math, it looks like per year it's back to like comparative. They compare. Because if you do 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, right, you either have 7 over the course of 5 years or 8 over the course of 5 years, and so it's per
We'd
a
like to
5-year
do 1, 1,
basis.
1.
It's about the same.
We'd like to just do
It's
one.
just yeah, no, I appreciate that, but like if we did 2 at 80 grand, that's 160, and if you do that over the course of
Yeah.
5 years, vehicle wise, you will have spent almost the same. Just each vehicle in the 5-year cycle is more expensive. Ouch. Whew. That's just I see 128. I'm like, but then again, I've also seen what trying to replace my used vehicle with another used vehicle would cost. So I get it, but it sucks.
Yeah, it's not gonna be 128 though, it's gonna be 64.
Yeah, the 120 was the 2, they
Oh.
reduced,
That was for the
reduced
two,
it.
so you go to the 64.
Oh, that's even better.
Are you happy?
No, but
Yeah, I left that in department proposed, cause that's what they proposed.
yeah.
I
Oh,
took
okay.
it out of select.
Vehicle's 43.
Oh, I didn't look at
The-
that. I looked. Okay.
It's 20.
I jumped over to here. I'm like, oh, good lord. See, there you go. For 65, even better.
So what's in yellow here is,
It got reduced.
What the
This
selectmen
got
reduced.
Yeah.
So staying with the reduction theme, my last line,
Yeah, you just found 65,000.
I did recommend a reduction in the PD seminars and conventions of $3,655 reduction. That line covers leadership professional development for the chief, command training, leadership for command staff, plus the registration fees for some of the training that the line officers are doing. But we're finding that a lot of it is beginning to be offered online, and we're gonna take advantage of that. So the cost is reduced a little bit, and there's webinars and things of that nature, so we believe we can reduce that line, that amount, and still meet the training goals and the requirements. And that's PD.
That is PD admin questions.
I have a question about the overtime. I thought you guys had said last year that once you had the 2 SROs, they'd be covering vacations and stuff in the summer, and the overtime would actually go down. That was my understanding anyways.
I don't
That's
think
exactly what I asked the chief. He read my mind as far as what my question was. Because that was the
chilling-
exact conversation that I'd had, was
But the
it would
question is-
either like stay level
Yeah.
or
go
potentially go down.
The question
not
is,
go
did we
up.
fill the spot? Did we fill the SRO? So
But then don't budget for more overtime and the position itself. Like, if you need more overtime because you didn't fill the position, then take from that line item of the position you didn't fill. Don't ask me for $7,700 more in addition to the money that you're not using because you didn't fill the position.
Well, I'm gonna go back and compare number of hours versus rate increases, because if it's the same number of
That might be it,
hours.
it might be rate increases too.
Because if if the number of hours are similar, but it's all because everybody got raises, well, that's one thing. But if it's, if you're adding hours, sure. But that's why I keep my paper copies, because I'm gonna go home later and set my binders out and compare.
Which line are we asking about?
I was
sir?
asking up, what line?
140.
140.
Oh, 140.
Did we hire an SRO?
We assigned an SRO from the patrol division, and we're in the process of backfilling.
So, but
for
we
that.
didn't have them over the summer, which is where we would hope to achieve the savings in overtime.
Correct.
But in theory, next year we have them, right?
Hopefully,
Right.
yes.
So, under the 140, there, it's the rate adjustment based on the COLAs, things of that nature. You have an additional officer in that mix as well that's going to be eligible for earned time. And an analysis of the existing earned time. If everybody took their earned time within a calendar year, we would never be able to cover it with this amount. We budgeted roughly 50% of the amount that's on the
Could be
books.
taken.
So one question I have is, my understanding is we still have an officer who's out on deployment.
Correct.
So are those wages being applied towards overtime? Because we're carrying the salary. So are we also, is that helping to offset some of it by not spending it?
In the bottom line budget world, yes. But we are carrying his salary, but
Right.
I didn't budget any overtime for him or anything
Right.
because he's not here. Not physically here,
Right.
So are we down officers right now?
yes,
How many?
2.
How long have we been down 2 officers?
We're down the one that got voted by town meeting, and we've been down about 3 weeks on the second one.
That's it. So my question is for the one from the town meeting. So those monies, that was a warrant article, correct? So that money has not been expended,
Correct.
right?
At this
Because we don't, right.
Yeah, well, that warrant article was 0. They didn't raise it, we didn't raise and appropriate any money.
It came out of their budget from last
This
year.
year. It came out of, because we budgeted for the part-time, officer. And so the chief at that time felt that he was already,
You're right.
it was actually a savings,
So
so
the-
we didn't
So there's
budget
no
any
money to just be
for it.
carried over.
Yeah. So
You're
next
not,
year
you're
is
not
when
talking
they
about
get
the
hit.
SRO position, this is something else?
No, that's the
it's just-
SRO.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, because we lost a part-timer and they had already budgeted for that,
Yep.
and his wages, his benefits, and then for half a year of hiring the SRO, it was gonna be a saving, so we didn't raise and appropriate, but then it hits your budget
Right.
this year for that money that you now have to raise and appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Who was assigned as SRO?
Corporal Morgan.
And then this yellow line is the second SRO, right? The one, the highlighted one, the new one that isn't filled yet is the second one?
The yellow one, I think would be for the new, SRO, we just lost the second one. The 30th, I think he left, September 30th. And his wages are in here, because we had done this
Because
before he
you have to
left.
fill
Yeah.
positions still,
Yeah.
obviously, or hers, I don't know who though. I have a question more, I guess more for the committee. So, obviously the voters approved this position, the so the $63,000 here. Does that still go against the cap though, even though the voters approved it?
Yes.
Doesn't seem
Just
fair.
like the communication.
Yeah, it doesn't seem
equipment.
fair.
But
Yeah.
that's the point that I keep hammering,
Yeah.
is the fact that, you know what, you can only grow by 175,000, yet everybody's going to come and ask for more money because they need more things. Meanwhile, then at that point, Karen's gonna show up and go, guess what? Here's your big health insurance increase that everybody has to take. That's pretty much going to suck up most of that increase,
Or even
most of that gap increase.
Yeah, I mean,
The
'cause
the town voted to approve those increases, that
I
shouldn't
know,
get
I
counted
thought-
against the tax cap.
But so what happens
That was the
is,
first year, but not the next year.
it's
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
voted
Those
and
gets-
appropriated and raised that year.
Then the next year doesn't
Not-
count, but still, the first year.
Yeah, so the first year it does count, but the SRO officer was 0 for this year. So now next year, you're making up
Yeah.
that difference of what we, separate from what we budgeted, and now what the difference is gonna be, if that makes sense.
That's tough.
So their budget's
Yeah,
up
it is.
185,000 total, and 184 of it is, contracted wages, the cruiser purchase, and the equipment purchase, safety equipment purchase. So that means outside of that, everything else is up $1,000.
Any of that safety equipment purchase, it could be year-end fund balance? That are one-time purchases? Either radar units, bulletproof vest.
Cruiser. I'd say possibly.
You're not wrong though, yeah. The problem is you want the cruiser in there though, because if we're doing one a year, now the budget's set, it doesn't go up, it doesn't go down. Obviously, well, the cost of cars would go up.
No, but like you said, somebody like me will come in and say, but wait a minute, why are you adding this in?
Yeah. If you're doing one a year, at least it's even forever, you know?
Yeah.
If one-time purchases, I think you can use that for, is that right,
What
Karen?
is it?
Like the,
Line 740, like the
740,
equipment
which is
purchases.
range
so-
equipment,
Yep.
cruiser radar units, new time hire.
Yeah.
It's a
$25,000.
$19,000 line.
And what was the question, though?
Can we use year-end?
Year-end fund balance.
If there's anything left.
there's anything left,
You'd
yes.
wanna purchase it this year if there's anything left.
Is the
Otherwise, if you're gonna take it from unassigned, you have to have a warrant, article.
Is the cruiser radar unit part of the new fit out of the vehicles? Like, so we have a number for fit out, but we also have cruiser radar units. Is one of those already factored into the fit out of the new vehicle? No? Why not?
The existing radar units get transitioned over.
Okay.
These are new ones to replace the existing ones in the front line.
Right.
So that would, if that cruiser was to be replaced, that would be one of the pieces of gear that gets moved into the new car.
I thought though with the 5-year cycle, we weren't going to be moving equipment out anymore.
No, you would still be moving, if you replace a frontline car, whatever equipment that's still within that life expectancy will get moved with that car.
In other words, they won't get rid of it before its life expectancy's gone.
Well, what is the life expectancy of a,
The radar,
yeah,
well, I would say 8 years potentially. The last code threes we have are gonna be almost 10 years old.
Yeah, 8 to 10 years, I think,
so you could potentially get 2 car cycles out of, okay.
as long as they fit.
Yeah.
And the other
Well,
reason,
there's caveats, but when you're thinking about the budgeting, from my perspective of budgeting, I could potentially buy one new and then get 2 placements of it and then, yeah.
and it's also important to note that you want all the cars to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously responsible, so like
Right.
having mix is a challenge from a training and memory muscle kind of,
Right.
muscle memory kind of response, so that's why we're trying to do them all in one shot.
Okay, so you wouldn't consider a radar unit replacement as part of a fit out because you wanna do them all at once, okay, that makes sense, I just make my notes so when it comes up again in the future.
Other questions for police administration? Okay. Let's move on to police support services, 4210.50.
So police support services covers the 2 full-time dispatchers that provide dispatch service here at the facility 5 days a week, 16 hours a day. The remaining time is covered by Hillsborough County Communication Center on a contractual basis. So police support covers those dispatcher wages, and per contract there is a COLA increase. There's also earn time, and there is uniform cleaning and provision of uniform allowance. Hillsborough County gave us the quote this year to keep the same rate that they had last year, which we are most appreciative of.
Year before,
so
the year before.
Is that it? That's just an annual renewal.
it's an annual,
These are the
yeah.
changes we made.
So with the exception of the adjustments for the wage increases in COLA, there is a reduction of $500 in the overtime line. That's based on our history, and that essentially is police support.
Oh, I didn't have a reduction.
I don't see
I don't see the 500
I
reductions.
didn't either. I had 9,000. Did it go for a reduction?
I have
Where was it?
I'll change it. Yeah, you wanna do 8,500?
Yeah.
All right,
5?
Yep.
so I hate to do this to you, but I do wanna go back to 4210 real quick. On the chief's salary, is that a set number, or do we have somebody that we know is gonna be at that rate, or is there some, like, we could be hiring somebody that's gonna be more? Like, is that a known number is what it comes down to?
Oh, the chiefs?
Yeah.
Sorry, the police chiefs, that's what his will be next year.
So it's a known number.
Yeah.
So we have a $500 reduction that came, sorry, going back to police support, $500 reduction that was just put in for overtime. So the increase for this total, account is $47.55. Questions on police support? Okay. And animal control? 44-14-10.
I think the only, recall correctly, the only changes in animal control have to do with electricity and heating. Everything else is remaining the same from 2022.
Do we have a specific person that's the animal control officer, or is it just one of the police officers?
We have a specific person assigned on an on-call basis.
Other questions for animal control?
So we don't have a vehicle available for their use? Like, I feel like we've been doing a lot of vehicle replacements and upgrades and holding on to stuff. Do we not have a vehicle available for their usage?
We've been using the cruisers.
Well, it says a stipend for personal vehicle use. So if they're using a cruiser, do we need a stipend?
I would say yes, because there are some certain situations the type of animal you don't want in a cruiser.
But you want them in your car?
It's not our car, right?
The one with the white stripes on the back?
So it sounds like we need a panel van.
Fair enough. Good
No,
answer.
you need a coyote.
At some point, you may want to consider an animal control vehicle. This is the-
So no, I wouldn't want them in my,
No, I wouldn't put them in mine either, but.
but then again, my car's,
Way to go, Kerry, you just opened that one up.
I have two boys, it's used and abused, so.
Anything else for animal control? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I believe that takes us to the rest of the evening.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain,
We'll see ya.
Thank you all.
for being a model.
You have to, after you.
Kleiner and Miss White, you all have everything for the rest of the evening, is that correct?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coffee.
So we'll just roll in order from there and go to our favorite one next, fire hydrants, 4220.90. Could have saved it to the end, but
It's like,
We actually,
went
we
down.
seem to have a reduction in it, so,
How's that happen? Give it a fire hydrants?
Oh, they're adding them next year, remember?
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Penachuk had sent us,
That's the truth.
every year they send us what their projections for it, and, which is attached there, and, that's what I went by, and it seems to
Still
go down a little
gouged.
bit, yeah.
I know. Now, the fire chief, didn't he say that 4 additional ones were,
it's more than
like,
that.
Yeah.
I mean,
more than
sorry,
that.
there were
It's more.
6. There were more proposed, but then he was able to get rid of 6, so that this includes
No, that won't be until
those-
they're in, which I think will come in
the
next
following
year.
fiscal year. Okay,
So,
got it.
just for the record, Penachuk charges us $1,655 per hydrant. Manchester charges us less than $800. Just saying that somebody at the state level should ask why.
Penachuk should paint them all, too.
Well, what you were saying, like somebody was saying brand new trucks and all this other nice stuff. Like, really? I say we see if Manchester can buy them out because I'll happily pay. We can split the difference. $1,200.
questions on fire hydrants?
There's not. I mean, it's a contract, right? There's really not much you can do other than make sure that the numbers are correct. Do we have
Yeah,
to-
because I think it used to be, what, $10 on our bills back in the day?
I want to say it was more than that, but yeah.
Ten a quarter,
like
wasn't
10.
it?
A quarter or 25 a quarter.
Mine was a monthly bill for that, wasn't it?
Really? I thought mine was 10 a month.
I think I shredded them all, although I
I thought
could
mine
have
was
put them all.
$10 a month. I could be wrong.
All right, moving on. We'll go to emergency management, 4290.10.
So there really is no changes, but we moved that hazmat district into the fire department's budget, so that's why you see a decrease there. Otherwise, it's stayed the same.
So what have we actually spent on line 740? Because I'm seeing 0 for 2020, which I would have, and then 0 for 2021 in this chart. So
Let me see.
is this just being absorbed in other line items, and we can zero it out, or bring it to a
I
dollar?
think the last couple of years, that was like COVID stuff.
That
I think you're right.
1,500? Wait, did I just say article?
And Troy always wanted to keep that because in case something else ever popped up again.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Frank, when he was emergency management, he had said, you know, in case you had to use the facilities and supply stuff.
Well, I'm just saying it's an easy $14.99 to put towards reducing my overage. If we dropped it to a dollar, if legitimately all those expenses are being covered in other line items, then do we need another $1,500? I'm not arguing that the stuff's not purchased. I just wonder if they're just being charged to other.
Yeah, I don't think we've spent anything out of it, Carrie, this year. Let me just see if I can find a, budget, the last budget.
While Ms. White looks for that, any other questions on emergency management?
Yeah, 2021, we spent just a thousand.
Yeah.
It's $1,500 less, maybe 1,700 less than we had appropriated.
So 2020 we spent $328.
Oh, yeah, all right.
0 so far this year.
Right. Zero
And
less.
0 in 2021.
Right.
So it's like, I'm not arguing that stuff's not being purchased. I just think it's finding its way into other departments.
Yeah, so equipment purchases, yeah, we have not spent any money so far this year.
So, just so you know, I'm flagging that
Good.
one.
Duly
Repair
noted.
and maintenance, we have the software.
Anything else on emergency management? All right, moving on to health agencies, 4415.10.
So that's the one that goes to warrant articles.
Yep. And the link to the request.
I don't think I put anything in yet. Kim was going through them all when she got here, so I will do that. She's been going through them this week.
Right, which was coming in a little lower than last year. The requests are a little lower.
Yeah, cause I don't
There
know,
is,
I'm surprised Carrie didn't pick that one up. In the police budget, the child advocacy only asked for 2,500 that we just saw, so I took 250 out of their budget, cause it was
Right.
2,750 last year, but they only asked for 25.
So when you add these in, is that gonna up the tax cap?
So that one was, no, cause this will be a
Goes for
warrant
warrant.
article.
You just
Yeah.
can't necessarily vote for it.
Yeah, yeah, well, yes, it does, so you can't
Can't
vote for
recommend it.
Yes, you
So-
can't recommend it.
Has the committee met and awarded the funds that were allocated for last year? Do we know what was, because originally it was,
We awarded the 2155,
Okay.
whatever the warrant article was,
Yeah.
right, Heather, finished paying all those?
They did.
We did pay all those from the warrant article, yes.
Okay.
So this, it just hasn't been updated because it goes to the warrant article.
I don't see the women's club in here.
Well, this one, it has just stayed the same because it goes to the warrant article, and Troy always took care of that. I didn't do
Well,
the warrant
Troy took
article
care of the
for
women's
that.
club, okay.
So he had whatever was on the list for
It's
the
on that hyperlink at the
2155.
top, Bob. But it is zeroed.
Cause he hasn't put anything in yet, or
Yep.
we haven't put anything in yet.
or they haven't received a request.
Does that still exist? I used to be a member a long time ago, but I haven't heard anything from them.
They do, they haven't been as active the last few years because they used to do a lot of fundraisers, and then a lot of them were taken over by PTO and whatever, but we kept them going because, a lot of times when there's a say, needy family in school, needy children or whatever. They don't have mittens in the winter, they might not have hats or boots or whatever, you know. The women's club always seemed to step in and do things, so we wanted to make sure that we were helping to fund that.
Do we know what drove the significant increase in the requests from the Greater Nashua Mental Health? Because, or have they always just requested, because the amount approved in 2021 was 2,000. I guess I could go back potentially and look at previous requests. Do they always shoot for the moon, I guess? Like, or like, what is the justification why our allocation would be 33,000, or why they're asking for that amount from us?
Yeah. So they actually put it in the request, they actually broke down services and where, the individuals that they're providing services to, the communities they come from, and that's what they're basing. They did it again this year.
Okay.
Traditionally, especially for the past few years, you've seen mental health increase.
Right, so some of them used to be like, we've decided that you're based on your population, this is your proportion, like, but if you only serve 2 of us, that really isn't my proportion. So the question
Harry,
is,
this
no,
one
it
here,
wasn't
if you
done.
look into it, they do actually they track based on location of the folks that go to the Nashua facility, for example,
They do.
and have a certain dollar amount
so, and that's,
based on Litchfield residents that go to
Correct.
those particular centers.
alright, so, yeah, okay, so I guess.
So it's not we feel like we need, it's here's, you increased from 10 people and next year it was 20 people. So there's actually a strong correlation between.
Right, that's what I want to make sure is like there's actually like there's actually real residents behind. Not that you want them to be needing that kind of assistance, but to make sure that it's not be like, well, we spent $1 million and we think that you should kick in 10%, but why? So it's good to know that they do track that. Thank
Did
you.
the warrant pass last year to fund this?
Anything else on health agencies?
It was also under the cap.
Yeah.
Correct.
Really?
Yeah. Everything but the fire truck.
All right, let's move to insurance, 4196.90.
All right, sorry, I got out of that.
And this is our general liability insurance.
Oh.
Yep.
4196, other insurance.
Yep.
We still haven't gotten that. Actually, I think it's coming out, I thought that I read the 14th, which is tomorrow. My packet should be in the portal, so I'll check that tomorrow.
Okay.
So the insurance deductible, we usually just keep that at the 200, so it's more the 2,000, it's more the general liability from Primex.
The steady trend of going up about
Yeah,
5 to 10%.
yeah. As you get more, equipment and more things, it increases.
All right, any questions on other insurance? Personnel administration, 4155.10.
Personnel, all kinds of, stuff. So we, the selectmen had, offered to put, life insurance on for the full-time employees. And short-term, went up because we have, a couple of new employees that, are eligible for it. The, flexible spending stayed the same. Social Security, went up minimal. Medicare went up a little bit. So the retirement changes, and surprisingly, it went down a little bit. So next July 1, it goes down slightly. So I did my estimates of retirement for half the year and half the year. And I think that's it. And I don't have workers' comp yet, and I think unemployment is on here too as well, right? Yeah, I don't have workers' comp or unemployment yet.
Questions on personnel?
So I did have a question about the life insurance. I mean, I know in the private marketplace, people pay for their own life insurance, but I see there's a lot of life insurance paid in this town to staff, and I understand some of that's contractual. And so, can you tell me who, I don't know, just can you give me like an overview of who gets life
How many
insurance
people?
and who
So the
doesn't?
full-timers, well, so what do I have, an estimate of $76.50, and I think it's $4.50 a month for each person.
So is that like one times the salary or three times?
No, 25,000,
Oh,
Oh,
well,
it's capped at that.
Oh,
yeah.
So
okay.
$50 a person.
In most municipalities, you'll see.
About $50 a person.
So about
Yeah,
17.
19 people.
Yeah, about 17 of us.
17. Other questions on personnel administration?
is that a benefit that people have asked for? Like, do we see us needing it in order to be competitive? Like,
I think it was more when our building inspector passed away.
Hmm.
And it was just kinda like, we don't offer anything like that, the police department gets it,
mhm.
and, you know, so it was brought up, and
So is that only for the non-union? Like, it would be,
the
We
union is in their
negotiate-
budget.
Yeah, the unions
Yeah.
get their own.
Yeah, the union's in their budget, but, theirs is the same, the 25,000.
And the fire department, they get it
The,
too?
the
Yeah, they
two full-timers are on that as well, yeah.
so how many people does this cover?
I think 17.
Oh, 17.
So $1,000 to cover 17 people, is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Anything else on personnel administration? Ms. Stevens, I haven't given you the opportunity to ask any questions. Any questions on your end?
No, thank you.
I just have, it just struck me, there were huge police increases in retirement, and I'm just curious, do we have more people retire, or has the rate gone up that we need to put in?
No, so the rate is going down, but you saw that $106,000 increase in their wage line, the 4,000, so that's all New Hampshire retirement.
Oh,
Eligible, their overtime, all those increases on New Hampshire.
I
That's
see
what we're paying
8,000.
into the retirement
I
system.
see
Okay.
8,000 more, so that's a higher percent that we're
The
obligated to
employee,
pay in.
It's like 30% or that, like.
the, police is 33.88% that we pay into it, and then in July it will go down to
Oh, yeah, right.
31.28.
Oh, yeah, so it's a $32,000
Yeah, for the police.
increase.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
But
And
that's,
that directly correlates to the $100,000 wage increase that was on the police salary.
and any of the, yeah.
Okay.
But, yeah, all of their increases in overtime,
Get hit on all of it.
the
And
detail.
again, going back to the tax cap, and at that point, or just like in the school, retirement is an absolute killer.
Isn't it?
Year over year over year. And I can't stop saying the fact that, you know what, there's wages, there's benefits, and there's stuff. And somehow we still continue to go down the road of, I need more wages, I need more benefits, and I need more stuff. But sooner or later, the taxpayer doesn't have enough to feed this beast, because nobody else sees increases like this, whether it's on the town side or on the school side as far as retirement is concerned.
Unfortunately, though, there's not much negotiation room on that one, because that's stepped by the state, right? It's,
Yeah.
and when they
Stepped by the
tried to, so back in the day, all the towns, my understanding, were joined in because the state was kicking in a good portion, and then they decided, oh, this is a good deal, we're not paying anymore. But even though we locked you in, you can't get out of it because you have contracts. So,
That's
and
happening on the school side too.
Carrie, but it's just then it goes back to,
I
you know
hear
what?
you.
Just about everybody ends up getting a year-over-year increase as far as
I
their
know.
salary in the public sector. Everybody gets the retirement increase because it's mandated that we have to pay for it.
Yep.
And then we need more vehicles, we need more things, we
I
need
hear
more
ya.
software, we need, but the tax cap tells you, you can only need this.
I hear
and
you.
We are pretty much required to do this.
That's why there's gonna have to be some difficult discussions and decisions made, because there is a reality that there's only so much you can tap into. The reality, though, is when you think about it, some of these things are, you really don't have much control over from this end. The only thing you can do then is you have to start looking at, do we really need that many people? Do we really need this many things? Like, do we need that many, how much coverage in hours? Like, that's where you're gonna have to move, because the retirement is something we cannot control unless you get to Concord and you have somebody pass a law that allows us to start shifting people out into 403Bs, but you can't, that won't take benefit until like 20 years. By the time you see the impact of it, it's.
I mean, to your point, just looking at police, I know these are things that are contracted, to your point, but when you just look at police salaries and their retirement, those two together are 85% of our tax cap right there.
Yep.
Those are things we don't have control over.
And I'm sure when we get to the school, you know what?
Right.
Salaries and benefits.
Yeah.
And the problem is that then everybody takes a look at us as being the bad people. That we're saying, no, you can't have this. But we're saying, no, you can't have that because, you know what? I can't cut most of these other things. Like, most of these other things are cost. I can't cut the health insurance. I can't cut wages because it's contracted. I can't cut retirement. So then all of a sudden, we're the big mean people because there's something we have to cut to get under the tax cap.
And unfortunately, that piece of pie that we can cut is getting smaller and smaller.
Right, right.
Before you know it, salaries and benefits, it's gonna be the only thing on here, and the rest is
90%
gonna,
of the budget.
the rest will be warrant articles.
Which then when they pass, you already end up in the hole because now you have to fund them.
All right, anything else on personnel administration? All right, our last line item we have for this evening is advertising and regional associations, and that's 419710.
This ain't bad.
Still an increase.
Yeah, public notices and ads, went up. I did a 3-year average. And, I think, you know, a lot of that is our legal requirements when you go to, you do the budget hearings, you do, actually, I don't know how much RFPs we do, but if you do budget hearings or deliberative and, all that, it's legally required to put them out in the paper. And then, who went up, it must have been, NHMA dues. And NRPC said they were staying the same.
I think it's notable that that they're staying the same.
Questions on advertising and regional associations?
So I just had a question about, is it Jay Mankara? I know a few other, was it last week or the week before, we talked about his salary, right? So what does the municipal association dues cover versus his salary?
Oh, so what, NRPC dues? I'm not even sure what NRPC dues.
Ms. Stevens, is that from the planning board side? Is that something?
I mean, I looked at, it's part of what they say is tax mapping and land use technical assistance. And then Jay, I think, is covering the CIP planning and tax impact planning, but I don't know if that's everything. That's what I guessed.
So their letter says that the amounts assessed to each community vary slightly from year to year due to annual changes in the equalized assessed valuation and estimated population. Membership dues are primarily used as local match for federal and state grants that fund NRPC programs. Dues also support our energy
Got the tax
aggregation
mapping
program, day-to-day GIS support such as tax mapping, which we do get our tax maps from them. There are updates all the time. Whenever a subdivision or a street goes in, they have to change all of our maps to reflect all that. The land use technical assistance dues are one of the lowest per capita of any region in the state and amount to only 10% of NRPC's total budget.
So then is Jay paid on an hourly basis or is it a project basis? Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
so there were charges for the tax impact, which was separate from
Sure.
this dues. And there were charges for, the other one,
CIP.
CIP, which was separate from these. But these dues are paid, by municipalities that belong to it.
Yep.
They're, NRPC is famous, they do all the transportation, so if there's big transportation grants that are going out, if there's, if you need GIS support or studies of roads and things of that sort, they're heavy into that. They're heavy on the planning board side, heavy on the zoning board side. So
I just
really,
noticed
if you
because
don't.
he's also the president of that.
Yeah, cause
Right,
we
but
used to have
he's not
somebody else
paid.
who serviced
It's in
us.
in that. So his salary would be in that, in those fees.
But he's under planning board as well, and because he's our rep from planning board.
Yeah, he gets 20 hours a month at 75
stipend.
an hour.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
And there was a follow-up question. I know Mr. Taylor had asked this at our last meeting, and Ms. Stevens, I know you've been out, but I believe there was a question about if Mr. Minkar did not attend the CIP meetings, what would that impact be? And you may not have had a chance to get that, and that's fine.
I have, I don't have his contract, that's the one thing I've been trying to track down, but I was looking at his invoices, and there is a charge for meeting and travel, and there's also for general planning, because he's doing all of basically the admin work for every planning board, application that we get, since we don't have a town planner. And, as far as CIP goes, he is also doing all the admin work for that, so
All the what?
Admin.
Oh, okay.
so he's putting together the actual CIP plan based around all the discussions that the committee has. So maybe next year, if I'm not sure how often the committee is looking to update that plan, maybe he doesn't have to come to the meetings. It's kind of just more like a on-ask basis. If it's more of like a maintenance thing that somebody from the committee would have to volunteer to maintain that document. If we wanted to pull a couple hours from him, but I don't know, it's not broken out on between like CIP and planning. He's just charging for his general hours. So I can try to get that information from him though to really get an idea of how much he's working on either one. But I'm sorry, I just don't have that tonight.
No, that's fine. That would,
That's all right.
Articles too, for any of the ordinance
Yep.
changes, that goes into the ordinance, right? He does. Oh, planning board does,
Yeah, he writes the warrants, and the NRPC dues also, I think they might have something to do with there's a regional commission meeting that they meet quarterly, and that's everyone in that NRPC group, so that, major projects that would affect the region, everyone can come together. We have 2 representatives, I believe, to that group.
So the regional meeting would come under the NRPC dues, is that what I'm hearing? And then the warrant articles for the ordinance changes,
it's under the planning board.
since that would,
Yep.
yeah, that's custom to us, I would assume that would be his hourly. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Coming back to advertising and regional associations, any final questions on 419710?
Something else, and Kate would know this, that Jay has been involved is the T-TAC studies that have been going on, which in Litchfield we have 2, which is, it goes under the 10-year plan.
So what does that
Route 3A
stand for?
Corning Road, intersection improvements. and
So for those of us
Congress.
not in the know, what is T-TAC?
It's basically a traffic, it's a
Okay.
traffic,
Yeah.
10-year traffic plan.
Perfect.
But he's been working on that, not only going through the DOT, but also going through this T-TAC committee. So they came out with their 10-year plan rankings, and I think a lot of it's due to his work and Kim Queenan's work too, one of our selectmen, that we did get the 3A Corning Road intersection approved. So, I mean, the work that he does for the money we pay him, I think is,
And when he does that type
Such
of work,
great
it still
value.
falls under planning board, I assume?
it's all, they're
It's all
all,
there, okay.
yeah, they're.
He was probably looking
And he
at
wrote the
whatever
grant
project.
too.
Yeah.
Say
Like he
that
wrote
again.
the grant for the sidewalk, I believe, was that on the warrant a few years ago?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
And he was the one that applied for that grant for us also, so he really does a little bit of everything.
All right, so that wraps up our line items that we have for this evening. Next on our list is reviewing preliminary revenue estimates. So if you scroll all the way on the tabs at the bottom to the far right, the last tab that's on there is revenues.
So on that, you know, there's a little bit of change. I'm getting a little concerned about motor vehicle registrations. I don't think they're coming in as well as they have in the past. I mean,
You can't replace the car, so you're stuck holding on to it. so-
Yeah, right? I think that's what's happening now.
You can't replace and you can't afford to.
I know, right? I'm like, please don't please let my van make it another day.
Yeah, that too. So I think we're starting to, even though I had increased it, but we don't have our tax rate yet, so I don't have really set numbers for rooms and meals for highway block, cause we haven't set our tax rate. We don't have that yet.
Revenues in the end, okay, got it.
So what you have for rooms and meals in the highway block, those are just placeholders based on last year, basically?
Yeah, so what happens is the DRA, when they're ready to set your tax rate, will call you and they'll tell you what your rooms and meals is for this year and what your highway block is, and you usually, you know, we'll ask them, do you think that's about what next year will be, and we'll carry that number. Sometimes they may say, you know, rooms and meals might not be, you know, as much next year, cause they're a fiscal, I believe, so, you know, they sometimes have somewhat of an idea. So, our 22, could change depending on what that comes in at, and then usually we'll either carry that same number forward if they think it will be about the same, or adjust it to what they think.
You say it could change, could go up?
Well, or could go down, rooms and meals, yeah, cause that comes from the state. I mean, it used to be 400,000. No, I think,
It was
so in 2021, when we proposed 349, and it came in at 636.
right. We were
So that's where we
anticipating the
saved some money.
COVID, the kind of COVID trend there.
Yeah.
Karen, under income from departments, do we not get the revenue from police citations? And I just thought,
No, we
because of the
don't.
fact that the police
Any tickets,
presented
we
today.
do not get them.
Where does that money go?
State.
To the state.
To the state.
What? So if they did any of our ordinances, which, you know, maybe got somebody for throwing snow in the street or something.
I
Or
know,
pulling
just
somebody
pay
over for
retirement
speeding,
on
that
it.
You
goes
know,
to the
that all
state.
goes to the state, yeah. Yeah, all
kidding
goes
me.
to the state.
Wow.
What is SALT school reimbursement?
So the school uses our
Share.
salt,
We share.
and so we budget, for that in highway's budget, and then we bill the school for whatever they use, so they weigh the truck when he takes the salt, and, then we bill them for it.
Oh, okay.
And so the price went up, so I increased the revenue for the 2023.
Dog licenses, marriage license, sex registrations.
$2,000, the only, was that all that we got for all those trees they took out of the state forest?
What did she say?
She asked,
The timber tax, was that from that, harvest that they did, over the summer?
The timber tax is anybody who, applies for a timber tax that cuts, trees.
I think her question was,
So, but for the state forest, that, it's a different, type of revenue that comes in. So when, I don't, so, but that was last year, right?
it was this
year.
this
I don't
summer.
remember now.
The state
Yeah.
forest?
Yeah.
Last
No,
fall.
the state, last fall.
Yeah.
So we would've gotten paid, last fall for it, so it would've been in our revenues for 2021, not 2022, or going to 2023.
Do you remember how much it was?
So if somebody goes to cut trees, it's supposed to be, you're supposed to, do an intent to cut. and then there's a tax on that because they consider that real estate. So if somebody was clearing, for a development, they would apply for an intent to cut, and it's 10% of, no, it's not 10%, that's a land use. How do they do it?
It's by the core, it's by the,
so it comes
It's not
out
the
with numbers
court.
for what kind of
Yeah.
trees it is, if it's ash, if it's oak.
it's a
if
different price for
pine,
each
and-
type of tree,
And
it's-
then how far it
cord
was to get
length.
them into that, and it's a lot of work, and you get a couple $1,000s out
Yeah.
of it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions around revenues?
What's payments in lieu of taxes? Hudson.
So Hudson owns some, property in Litchfield, and,
You have some right
we
behind Campbell,
can't
don't
bill
they?
them as, with our tax bills.
Those are aren't
So
those the
we send
wells?
them so we send them a bill in lieu of taxes, and it comes in as a revenue.
So back up to motor vehicle, fees. You increased it, but what are you seeing so far this year? How much of a decrease?
So the last I looked at the end of September, we were down, probably about 30,000 at that point,
For the year?
from last year's, at this time. What I didn't look was, the 3 months after that, did it increase? Did people get ones for Christmas? I didn't look. I just looked at where
That's
it
not a
was.
thing in our family, I'll tell you that.
Christmas bonus.
We've seen those ads and we laugh every time we see them. We're like, oh, yeah, who actually does that?
I couldn't afford the bow.
Any other revenue questions?
Or just when will you receive the,
Tax rate?
the revenues that right now you just have as placeholders?
We're waiting for the tax rate. That's when they set the tax.
Got it.
Do we usually have the tax rate by now, or is it delayed because of the school
I think it was last year we kind of had everything in early, and I remember people complaining that they got their tax bills early. We have to, for it to be due December 1st, we have to have the bills out by the end of October. So we're not, because it has to be 30 days.
How
you
long
have
does
to
it
give
take
them.
for you to process the bills? Because I'm just looking at it in terms of if the school didn't submit their information until
Yeah.
September 30th, and then there was a weekend, like, does that give enough time for the state to get you the information that you need?
Well, as soon as the state gives us the tax rate, I have to go into the software for our assessing and run a warrant. And then you have to make sure that you're within 10%. And I mean, it's not that big. It would take the day, but then you get the selectmen to sign off on it, and Terry will bring it to the tax collector, and they'll get it off to their printer, and so 2 days.
So, I had a question, let me see if I can remember what it was. Property tax interest, so that's people who don't pay it on time and get assessed that fee, or are those really delinquent taxes and?
So
those are
the
the
property
ones.
tax interest is ones that, are late on their, either the first issue or the second issue. The interest on the redemption for property taxes, I think that the tax collector charges them, like for the certified letters and the $25, there's some sort of fee that they charge and goes under that one. And then there's lien interest as well.
So is
These two don't
the
make sense to
22
me for the names.
is the 22 revised MS the one that reflects the actual revenues we receive from those?
So it's not the actual because the year hasn't come to an end.
Right.
It's what you're anticipating to be the actual.
So I just, for mine, like, I know we hold 10,000 for that, but to see that we actually do assess thousands of dollars in interest for people who, for some reason or another, can't pay their property taxes, I think it's something the committee should really take note of, because I think it's gonna get worse. As people, and so,
I'm gonna say-
as we make, well, I'm just saying, as we make our decisions on where to spend and where to increase and where to do it, really consider those our neighbors who are already struggling. So, I mean, it's a tough position, there are tough decisions, but the fact that there are people who are struggling for whatever reason to make the taxes, we should be careful of the decisions we make and consider them too. So, that's my concern. I see this and I'm like, those are real people who really couldn't pay their taxes, Whether it's like me sometimes and you forget, and like, oh crud, or if it's somebody who's like, well, it's property taxes or food this month. So just, we really need to be careful as we make decisions to really consider all people in town.
So Karen, going back to the timeline, if I take a look that we'll be voting next week, chances of having the taxes and notices out is pretty much none, right? Like, it would take a miracle to have that set. Then if we look at, you know, if needed, 10/27, that one's possible, but would you say that, I mean, that's a, you know, 30-40% unlikely that we may have it for the 27th?
So I know for all of my stuff's all in and waiting on review. I think it's the school that is what they're waiting on. So I don't know if they're complete and, has finished their financial forms or whatever is still due into the portal. Cause we just upload all of our information to a portal once it's complete, and then DRA reviews it as it gets in there.
Cause those are usually due 12/1, right? Or is it 11/1?
Taxes are usually due 12/1, but again, we have to give 30 days.
Right, so that's an excellent question, because
Cause if we don't get our tax rate, then it could be due the middle of December, you
Which
know, when we
then-
get them out.
concerns cash flow issues and other stuff, which would not be good if we end up having to borrow money at 8%, 9% interest rates or more. So,
I take it the DRA inputs that information as soon as they have it, they don't hold on to it and
No, they review it usually as soon as they have it, and, you know, there's only a few people in the Department of Revenue, which is surprising for all of the towns.
Yeah.
So I think as soon as information comes in, they try and review it, you know, as quick as they can, cause they know everybody's waiting for the tax rate. But then again, I did say a couple days, cause once we get it in, once we get our tax rate, it goes back for the head person to sign off on, and then they send it back to us, but it's still
So I know
usually
this,
just a
I know
couple
the
of days.
extension letter that the school got back from the state after we submitted the extension to September 30th was, you know, just make sure that you get it in by the 30th, otherwise there may be an impact on setting tax rate. But they seem to indicate that if everything was in by 9:30, it shouldn't affect it.
Yeah, when I was just in the portal, I thought there was something still missing from the school there.
I did too.
Can we make that a,
Yeah, do you wanna
a
email
question?
that over?
Has
Did you,
everything,
can you see what's missing?
So, can we receive can the budget committee receive confirmation that all information's been submitted to set the tax rates?
You
That way it
wanna
gets in the
email me
meeting
that,
minutes.
like if you can see anything and I can then check on it.
Okay, yeah, yeah, perfect.
So, okay, so you're gonna check that on your end?
Yep,
Communicate that back to Ms. Hirschberger?
yep,
Thank you.
yep.
Okay. Anything else on revenue estimates?
so not revenue estimates, but again, just one more question
No.
about the timing then. So if, and I'm asking the senior members of this group, if the tax rate is not set by 10/27, do we need to then have a third
No, me.
vote on the town budget because we don't have all the variables in place?
Well, we don't typically do a final vote on the town budget till like December.
The bottom line, yeah.
Because, and traditionally, we haven't received insurance until like October, November anyway.
Okay.
So, and then changes could still be made at the January meeting, so it's locked down, but not really locked down. Like, it's locked down, like, as you get close to budget hearing.
Bless you.
But there's still understanding that things can change.
Okay.
No, it's nice to be able to say, done, but.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, next is review preliminary default budget calculation.
Actually, I'm not sure, did I even, share this? I don't think I did.
Yeah, I didn't see
It
it.
used to be a tab, wasn't
Didn't see it in the tab.
Yeah, no, it's separate, cause
It was a
I
separate.
created from the budget, let me see, budget. So I don't have the library's default in, they haven't given that to me yet. Why is this not coming up? Budget report. gonna say, that's why you should be using the little laptop. Alright, see if you guys get it.
Did you just send it to us? Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
just shared it,
I
yeah.
hear the dinging.
Buzz.
Yes, thank you. So you said this, so right now we're showing a default of 7704829, but it does not include library.
Does not include library, no. And I haven't, really,
Which is gonna push it over.
Does it reflect the increased insurance though?
oh, no, actually, thank you, Carrie, no. Cause I just got the insurance
Yeah.
into the,
I was gonna be super impressed. I'm like, whoa!
yeah, I wish I was Superwoman.
But I'm like, I'll still be impressed. Just
Now put that on
So-
calendar, so I get that done. Alright, yeah, nope, I know.
well, you had it bolded, so or unless you just bolded it, I don't know.
So our current proposed budget, as it stands today, is $7,959,615. Current default budget, although not including library and our insurance changes, 7.7 million. But when I look at library,
It's over 300.
yeah, I knew it was. It's going to push the default north of where we are with the current proposed.
Oh, good lord.
Yeah.
The default. Tax cap.
Anything on the default for this evening?
How
All
does
right.
it- How does,
Nope.
sorry, how does road maintenance go up in a default budget?
It, I'd have to look at it, may have gone up because we had the warrant article for him to hire,
Oh, okay,
the new person.
that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that was the driving cost, and salt cost went up. So, although default, it should be the same, right? It just means you can buy less salt. So it's really just the
Well, you
higher.
get the wage increases as well as the new position.
I wouldn't
Right,
have put
but
it.
majority of his is related to, and health insurance.
Well, and insurance and retirement not reflected
All the
either.
above.
I mean, that's yeah. It'll be well north of 8.
Awesome. So we've got our work cut out for us.
All right, last item for review this evening: preliminary tax cap calculation. So if you go back,
It's done.
She's like, I didn't want to look at that one.
if you go back to our 2023 budget document, not the one that Ms. White just shared, and the second tab there at the bottom is tax cap.
I'm gonna take all this. Where is it?
And
I'm
she-
assuming under needs
yeah,
to go away.
she's deleting
Yeah,
that.
okay,
yeah.
thank you. I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
sorry,
I took a
sorry.
screenshot. I'm like, this
That
is
was
not.
all my templates from last
No,
year.
that makes sense, because last year we were under.
Yeah,
So we're
Yeah,
currently set, as of today, $243,693 over the tax cap.
So literally, the insurance was $100,000
Yep.
extra.
Yep.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, especially it's 170. The tax cap is $175,000 more, right?
Correct. So,
Sharpen your pencils.
to Ms. Douglas's point, that's a lot of money, and we all, I think, realize we have our work cut out for us. Next week commences voting, and we have a job to get that number under the tax cap.
Where
There's
do I
not,
find what the previous warrants were? I mean, is it?
For last year?
Yeah.
Previous warrant articles.
Yeah, and whether they were approved or not. I just would like to look at some of the history
So
that
if you went to the
you all
town's-
seem to know, but I don't
If you went
have.
to the town's website, you could go to a town report.
It only goes so
Town
far, and
reports.
some of them are missing.
I mean, but if you were looking for any, just email me and, you know, what
I
the
actually did
years.
find a website that's like one of the colleges that goes back to like way back.
Yeah,
Like, you can, they're the town reports. If you look up the town reports, you could scroll through and get to the warrant
The town
articles.
reports are the best place to look for.
So-
Okay. Okay, I'll see how far back
Goes
I
back
See if
to,
I
can
can-
find and
goes
then
back to
I need a
27
bookmark.
2017 right now.
we have up to 17,
These are
okay,
my history clears.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the town budget this evening? Any other questions for Ms. White, Ms. Kleiner?
Yeah, so some of your printed reports, we got the printed ones tonight, some of them may differ from what you saw. I didn't get the libraries increases, so I just put those in, today. I guess she did the oil and then, she did the health insurance, so I changed those. But I did change everything on that budget adjustment, sheet as well, to show the increases and decreases. But hopefully.
There's a
my
little bit of a difference.
Not right, yeah, my
Yeah.
tax cap, I just noticed, that's
Off
library,
by
43.
$500, $600.
Oh, that was just, the $500 we took from the police.
Oh, got it.
So
I do have a
240.
question generally for the town. I know in the school board side, I think we take attrition every year, and so I'm wondering if there's a similar figure that is provided from the town to deal with attrition.
There's enough employees, to be honest.
Well, that, and they don't have
There's
the,
enough employees at the school
but
has.
there's not the same level of turnover either.
Yeah.
Like, so you'll have employees who come in and come out and like move in, you hire, a lot of our employees on the town side, they're at longevity by a long shot.
But percentage-wise.
Do you even ask for-
Percentage-wise, it's about the same.
Turnover?
Yeah, cause I think somebody, did it, I mean, we probably have
Oh yeah, if you had one or two people
maybe
leave.
up to 40 regular, either full-time or regular part-time employees, then you have call firefighters, you have, election workers, you have the elected officials, you have trustees of the trust fund, you know, ones that get paid, our treasurer, our deputy treasurer, so those are all, you know, included in our payroll as well. But we have about 40 regular, and part-time and full-time, would you say about 40? Could be a little bit more, but about that.
So you're saying you guys don't look at attrition for the town?
No.
We'll look at, I mean, it's built into the what you budget versus what you spend. I mean, I kind of build it in already. So,
And I think it's a apples and oranges comparison. Typically, at the school level, you end up getting somebody that has, 30 years of experience, and then you hire somebody that's just out of college. You know, you need, I'll just use an example, you need a police chief. You're not getting attrition in a police chief level experience to somebody just out of the academy, so.
Anything else for the town this evening? So just to set the stage for next week, as I mentioned, we're meeting at 7. We'll start our voting process. So for new members, typically we'll kind of run through. I think, me personally, I think kind of the easiest way is if we just take the spreadsheet that we're looking at right now, move across the tabs at the bottom. So we'll start with Board of Selectmen and just kind of move across there. We'll look at it, take any proposed reductions, either line by line item or bottom line for that particular account code, and we'll kind of move through it that way. Okay?
sounds good.
All right.
But also,
Actually, can I
don't
because
hesitate
I
to
am
send
new.
emails either if you have questions, so that these guys can answer them in advance.
I great point, and any questions that you have in advance of next Thursday will help hopefully expedite our process a little
Trying to send them like before Thursday afternoon.
bit. And I do have one email that I owe, I don't remember who asked the question last week. It was either Carrie or Kate. It had to do with the underspend and the unassigned fund balance.
It's Kate.
And so I had to clarify something with Ms. White before our meeting started, so I'll get that. That's an outstanding question that I've got.
Will we have the list of recommended things for ARPA by that point in time, and will those be taken off this budget? We will not have them by that time.
So, I don't think so. They haven't,
'Cause
we haven't even seen them yet.
CIP, you all
So we
did.
met yesterday. Well, are we to that part of the agenda yet?
We can't, unless there's anything, I'll let you all go before we jump to that. Is there anything else before they leave?
Can I just ask a question, and John can probably answer it? On some of the budgets, the header stays and you can scroll up. Is there a reason why they don't all do that?
They may not have-
Oh, I
they may
probably
not
don't have
time
them
for it.
locked,
Yeah.
sorry. I can lock them, which ones, do you know?
There's a
I'll go
lot of
through
them. I mean, I think there's only a few that do it, and it's so much easier, like you scroll up.
When
Said,
it-
yeah.
when it's frozen,
Constantly
yeah.
going up and down, up and
Yeah.
down.
I have a big screen in my office.
Yeah.
Oh, right, I can see it across.
Yeah.
Brian, it just
I
means you
lock
need to
them.
be on the budget committee for like another 5 years, so you know automatically what the rows are.
Yeah, yeah.
So you know what, we'll
Keep
take it as
going
a
up, keep
trading
going down, keep
opportunity.
going. Well, they do it differently too.
This
It's
way,
like-
download it and then you
Because there are some.
I'm gonna put it on my
Yeah,
calendar
but
right now.
I mean, I just
Always
hit, about half of them do, half of them don't.
Brownie points, Brian, I will lock them for
All right,
you.
thank you.
Put that on my calendar right now.
Anything else before they leave, and then we'll come back to the CIP ARPA question.
I just overall from a budget, I'm just trying to think of the strategies that I've heard thrown out here. Obviously, it's either cuts, moving something to a warrant article, or year-end funds, use of year-end funds.
Yeah, which I've
What are
got.
the other strategies that we have to be able to use
In
to?
terms of what we do, we cut.
Yeah.
But no, at that point, I mean, honestly, we cut, and
Well,
then it's up
that's
to
why
the,
I said that first.
it's up
but
to the department head to figure out, and the board of selectmen to figure out in terms of what they want to use for end of year funds, or send it out to a warrant article. But ultimately, you know what,
Well, I
our
thought
only
we
thing is
had,
a
I
red
thought
pen.
the budget committee had a role in the warrant article.
No, we can-
Or you would cut, we would cut and then say,
We would
we're
recommend.
cutting, part of our rationale is we think this should be a warrant
Yes.
article.
Can,
But you
but
can't force them to
ultimately,
do it.
it's the Board of Selectmen that will decide that. And then we, in December, January, will vote whether to recommend those warrant articles, and that's
Yeah.
what will appear on the ballot.
But we would need to cut it to get below the tax cap, and then it's up to
Right.
them to go decide
Yeah.
on
So
doing a
perfect,
warrant article.
Tara, a perfect example,
Yeah.
right? You're looking at, you're trying to find $243,000 that's not salaries, you know, not benefits and not retirement. Like Mr. Taylor said, it's like, there's not much there.
Right.
So a perfect example of what we might just cut is the new vehicle, and say you should put it on a warrant article. And I know there was discussion in the past not to do that, not to put them on a warrant, so you can keep a cycle going. But, I mean, Carrie, you're going home and laying all your papers out and stuff. $243,000.
I'm not looking forward to it, honestly, because I'm not kidding. It's going to be tough decisions, and I think it's going to be deeper than people initially really think it's going to be to get there.
And I'm only using.
3,000 in insurance costs, yeah.
And I'm just
definitely.
using the police vehicle as an example, because it's a big money item.
chunk, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one other,
Yeah.
back to your original question, like a strategy that I always try to think about, that's why I asked the question of John when it comes to IT stuff and the police equipment, like, what are things that are one-time purchases, that are non-recurring costs, that are not people, that give us the opportunity to purchase that from year-end or.
So we
or
might
warrant
cut
or
that and
assigned,
say, we think this would fit into ARPA, right?
Potentially.
But it'd be nice if you have a dollar amount like right now, what they would have year end. Is there a projection right now?
I know,
for-
there were definitely discussions.
That's the
at
email that I
CIP.
have to send, so Karen,
Yeah.
please correct me if I'm wrong, but I have the underspend for 2021 and an estimate
2022.
of 2022 of about $75,000 left of unspent at year end.
Yeah.
That's what we're currently saying. So I had to clarify that number with what was in her spreadsheet before this meeting started, I'll forward this to everybody right now.
That's it, huh?
I mean, it could go either way. You know, I mean, it's all, you just try, you can pretty much project wages if nobody's gonna quit. You can do that. You don't know what's gonna happen if it's gonna
Killed by
snow.
gas and
The gas,
electricity.
you know, I had projected a couple months ago and I just went up in gas because we're more than I had projected. So it's, It's hard, it's hard. Could there be a little more? Could be. Could there be less if we get killed with snow? Yeah. Yeah.
It shouldn't be much, though. I mean, we, when COVID hit in 2020, we did a budget freeze. And then we zero-based budgeted the last 2 years. So there can't be a lot of money kicking around.
No, I mean, yeah. No, you get money, you know, if you have change in positions and,
Yep.
but sometimes that doesn't work the way that it should either, so.
So, Mr. Chairman, just
Yes.
time.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you,
No,
ladies.
no
I'm
offense,
tired,
Karen,
I
I'm sure
wanna
you
go
wanna be
home.
able to go home, but we got
No,
15 minutes
We
to
don't
get
wanna
through.
have to extend
I
our,
do.
extend our meeting yet again.
Although public input looks like it'll be quick.
Should be pretty quick.
Pretty quick. All right, let's move to town business general updates. I'll let Mr. Leary give any additional updates, and then we'll come back. We'll do capital improvement and address Ms. Hirschberger's question. So, Mr. Leary, general updates from the town.
Yeah, there's no real updates. I mean, everyone knows there was an open house at the fire station tonight. We haven't met in a couple of weeks. We'll meet Monday, which we'll get back into this, I'm sure. So if anyone's got any questions or suggestions, I welcome them. I always have, and I always will. We'll look at them for sure. And the only other thing, I just wanted to make sure everybody got answers to all their questions that they had asked last week.
Yeah, I believe with what I just shared just now, that
Okay.
I believe that answers all the outstanding questions. If not, let me know.
Cool.
All right,
Okay, so we'll do a quick capital improvement update, because I know you all met yesterday, and then specifically, we can speak to Ms. Hirschberger's question.
so part of it is, in addition to trying to prioritize the town projects and requests, is the allocation or recommendations of ARPA funds. Now, the CIP is gonna make their recommendations and present them to the Board of Selectmen, who ultimately makes the final choice. So, this is where the preliminary is. There will be meeting again, I believe, on the 25th, to try to get things finalized based on projections and whatnot. So, from ARPA, which I believe they said was about $904,000, tasers have already been moved out of the budget and into ARPA, because that's a $47,000 request. My understanding, and John, I'll be happy to correct me if I'm wrong, is that the tasers we have right now are 2 generations old and really not in good shape. Like, they're not reliable, and it sounds like they're more of a safety hazard. So we need, our officers and for safety need these upgraded tasers. But it's a $47,000 ask. And it is within the confines and definitions of what you can use ARPA for. One thing we did ask is that there be a replacement plan put together, because obviously with this equipment, there's gonna have to be replaced in about 5 for however many years. In addition, there's some technology items that were on the budget that was presented that have been pulled out by the Board of Selectmen. Those involve the speakers overhead speakers for some of the offices, wider monitors, some upgraded mobile phones. Would you like to speak? You are very passionate about these ones. But the items being another thing that we could allocate towards ARPA, as well as your upgrading some, the cameras for the cars, correct?
Correct. These are items that are existing in the budget right now?
They were in the proposed budget, but have since been pulled out. I think if you go to the IT, there's some yellowed out rows.
Right, those were already,
Yeah.
but those were already there in your
During my
presentation.
review, they asked for one time, what would be one time they could use potentially ARPA, and I identified all those, and they kindly removed them.
So they've been pulled out of the Board of Selectmen's request, but they're reflected in the department request. So the committee suggested doing that, doing those upgrades, because obviously it's safety of our officers. Additionally, putting money towards a backhoe replacement that is used by both the highway department and the recycling waste management. Money towards I believe, I have it written down, I'm not sure. I think they put money towards a plow truck or a dump truck, I'm not. There's money towards irrigation at Roy Memorial Park that needs to be done. There's money suggested towards some library improvements. They still need to come back and present, but there's money set aside for them. And the balance of it would go towards a down payment for, or offset of a fire truck, whether that's purchased, used, or new. Even if you have a used one, you can't buy anything because we don't have any money set aside for the purchase. We can't put a deposit on a new one because there's no money set aside for a purchase. So this would at least start that as seed money to decide whether they're gonna purchase a new, or, and then obviously put for a warrant article for the balance. Warrant article for the balance, but a good chunk of it is allocated towards that. The concern being, wanting to focus on public safety issues for the most part, as well as issues that are one-time spends that would benefit the town, but weren't necessarily gonna be, I don't know, would be more difficult to discuss or explain.
A couple of quick questions. So, you said the CIP's meeting again on the 25th.
Yes.
Is that when the recommendations will be formalized to go to the Board of Selectmen? Because I'm just trying to think of the timeline of our process as well, which I think gets to your question of.
Sure would be good to have a,
When
you know,
will
how,
we
to know how the selectmen feel about these recommendations
Right.
and if those are the
So-
priorities.
There is, let me see, I have
There's a
some,
couple I don't like, I can tell you that.
well, so I have a meeting, CIP on the 25th, and I believe, do you guys have a, is there a meeting for the Board of Selectmen on the 7th?
Monday, we have a meeting,
On the 7th?
17th.
Oh, 17th. All right, so I think the plan was to meet at or consideration of trying to present at a Board of Selectmen meeting so you guys can make your decision.
We might meet the week after too.
All right, so that's on the radar, but the next meeting is the 25th with the plan to meet with the library who hasn't, all of their requests were under the threshold, so they were going back to try to bundle theirs, so there was a miscommunication about coming yesterday, so they're coming on the 25th.
So I think
The expectation, the hope is to get it so that it can be considered, but other than the IT work that Mr. Brunel had graciously described to the ARPA people, there was nothing directly chosen out of the existing proposed budget, unless the Board of Selectmen decide to pull things out.
So I think, and this goes back, kind of connecting these two things with Mr. Taylor's question from earlier with our schedule. We have voting next week and the 27th. We get into the schoolwork from there. We do have a meeting on January 5th, which is where we will vote on the warrant articles, and that's the week prior to the budget hearing. Potentially could be an opportunity to do some voting there.
Yep.
As we get some of this final information here.
So Carrie, two questions from what you just discussed. What are the library what do they wanna do?
It sounded like there was some upgrades to carpet, some stack work, like the storage of the building, some ventilation.
They use the
Some-
fire department, the storage.
I'm just saying, they had an initial request, they did not present last night, so I can only vaguely recall based on what they had before. It was a bunch of small ticket items
Yeah.
that didn't really add up to
Okay.
much, so
I watched the meeting, security cameras outside, I think, improvements to the door.
a
There
bunch
was
of little
some,
things here and there. So the question was,
Movable cabinets.
so which items made sense on a schedule to bundle together kind of things? And that's what they were supposed to be working on, is which items make sense to group together versus, we can do this hit now and then next year come back for another thing, or 3 years, whatever. But what makes sense to go to?
So the bigger question is the monies for the fire truck. How much monies are we talking about that they're looking towards?
So it sounded like it was over 300 that was set aside for that purpose.
So-
Or it seems to be the goal within that recommendation. It's not been formally recommended yet, but that seems to
But
be the area.
let's just say it was recommended and the selectmen approve it.
Right,
So they take $300,000 for a down payment on a fire truck.
right.
So basically, the town would be on the hook to vote yes for the other 600,000, or you lose $300,000.
No, because it has to be allocated by the end of, my understanding is the end of next year, expended in the following year. So if it fails at warrant, they still have time to figure out how to use
It
it.
could be repurposed.
Well, what would you do? Put a warrant article for just a part of the fire truck and say we're gonna use this money for the rest of it?
Town, use it towards another project. I don't know.
You're saying if it failed, what would it be used for?
No, no, it's just, you're setting $300,000, I guess, yeah, like, you'd have to use it for something else, so you're putting $300,000 aside for a down payment on a fire truck, which, my understanding, I mean, from the sounds of it, you've gotta make that down payment like now.
So, I mean, you'd have to have like any other lease, like an escape clause, right? If it fails, it'd be a lease purchase kind of item, right? So if we do not get the funds, we would have to have in the paperwork that we are released from the purchase.
I would just be concerned that we're pushing the town into a corner by, here's a down payment on a fire truck, and, oh, by the way, now we need $700,000 more for the fire truck.
There's nothing saying that the town, that they can't say, we'll take the 300, we'll raise 500, 600, 700 at town meeting and then go make our purchase. I mean, there's nothing, they have to decide how they want to do it. So from the capital improvements, like, of all the worthy projects in town, these are some, we are willing to seed money this one to offset the,
So.
but right or wrong,
Yeah.
Wanted to make a motion to extend the meeting to 9:45, since we have less than 5 minutes left.
do we really even need to do that?
I think we can get through the, unless there's any more questions for Ms. Douglas, I think we can wrap through this.
Okay.
But thank you. I was just gonna, I think Mr. Sullivan is watching our meeting because he just emailed,
He is awesome.
CIP meeting dates. So the meeting that, Ms. Douglas recommended, Monday, November 7th is wrap up, Monday, November 14th, select board, Tuesday, November 15th, planning board, first week of December, public hearing.
See,
So
he's
there's a schedule
awesome.
for that.
Thank you.
I would thank you,
Need to
Mr.
write those
Sullivan.
down.
I would say any other CIP related questions, kind of hearing and seeing where they are, send them in via email. But it looks, when I look at our schedule, it looks like we're gonna have to take some of those things into consideration in early January. All right. Anything else on the town? Quickly, 3 minutes to go. Ms. Hirschberger, anything significant on the school side since last Thursday?
We issued a press release. We educate 100% of Litchfield residents 5 through 22 who wish to be enrolled in our public schools. Likewise, we cannot enroll students of other communities who would prefer to attend our schools unless the tuition arrangement has been approved by the Litchfield School Board as responsible stewards of public tax dollars. So that's out there on our
Thank you.
site.
And I do know, I believe, other than a set of questions that Ms. Douglas asked early last week, which I
Yep.
know we.
Yeah, we've only had 3 school days since the meeting last week.
I think those are the only outstanding
So
current
they
questions
will
we
get
have,
to
which
them.
I let Ms.
Yes.
Douglas know we would
Yep.
need a little more
You
time
got
on
it.
that.
What
Okay?
is this? How's the audit going for the what happened and those kind of things? Because we had to close out our books. When are we going to know where they actually landed?
Well, the formal audit will not come out till March. However, we did get those initial findings that I reported last week. And then we're gonna be discussing getting a special report, which we would get sooner than March for sure.
So we'll know what the revised end of year amount was at the end of the school. Like when you close out your books, like we had $3 left, or we were short by 2,500. Like we're gonna know what the end of year number is.
We're gonna have to, yes.
They can't be short.
Right.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
just saying, I would like to see that in writing, because I've had people express concerns to me about what that number, whether it's red or black. So I'd like to
I think
know.
one of the questions actually on deck is where are we at with that right now?
Yep.
So.
It is. Any other questions that anyone has for Ms. Hirschberger, send them in. We'll get those answered
Yeah.
as quickly as possible. With the 1 minute we have left, I did want to quickly update member input new business. Ms. Kleiner actually emailed before she left this evening, so we have confirmed town legal to attend our meeting on the 27th. I know there was a request that I think
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Bork and Mr. Taylor had made for our conversation around the RSAs and our roles and responsibilities. So she will be here that evening.
Perfect.
We'll build that into our agenda for the 27th. So just want to update on that. Any other member input new business? Open it for
Not
public
in 1 minute.
Open it for public
Speak
input.
fast. Speak fast.
Close it for public input. Have a motion to adjourn.
So made.
Motion by Ms. Douglas, second by Mr. Hayes. Quick roll call. Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Mr. Barca.
Yes.
Mr. Bork.
Yes.
And Ms. Stevens. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. It is 9:29. See
Feel
you all
better,
next
Kate.
Thursday.
Wow.
Hope you feel better.